as Worthy makes the first man miss. Straight ahead past the 40. Kicker to beat. There he goes. Worthy making a house call on a punt return. Xavier Worthy with a 75-yard return for a touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Rattler on 3rd and 8. Herman brings pressure, hit as he throws. Jump ball! What a catch! Xavier again! He is him!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
2nd and 15. Mertz pumps. Over the middle. Pearsall. Touchdown Gators.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Benson through a gaping hole. Benson kicked in the turbo. Good night. Touchdown Seminoles.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com. Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Monday. Some of you might be on spring break this week with the children, depending on the ages, or maybe you. I don't know, but we are here on this Monday. The start of March was on Friday. Here we go. March Madness is already hitting with some conference tournaments this week. Big 12 still have another full week of the regular season. We'll get to that here momentarily. In fact, tonight, Baylor hosting Texas. Texas now 500 in the Big 12 with 2 games left to play. What a weekend for Xavier Worthy. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina join me. I'm David Smoak. Xavier Worthy blew the doors off the 40 at the NFL Combine. A.D. Mitchell did a pretty good job of that too, a 4.25. Worthy initially was a 4.22. Everyone thought maybe tying John Ross. Normally what they show is faster than what's official. In this case, Xavier Worthy blistered a 4.21, and they compared it to Usain Bolt, who ran a 4.22. Obviously, different sport, but the speed of Xavier Worthy and the possibility of making a few more millions because of what he did.
Yeah, it was fantastic for Xavier Worthy. Color me not shocked that he broke the record. I mean, we've been watching him for the last couple of years just run past people when he's in open space. And while he's a smaller wide receiver, he's got just the kind of speed that can make differences. Tyreek Hill type speed, which is why I think that there's going to be several NFL teams that do whatever they can to make sure that he does not go to the Chiefs and give them back that little aspect of their offense that they've been missing. But I do think that you've seen a lot of people say this, but he's kind of the perfect Chiefs player, you know, as far as what his draft profile says and what their offense was lacking this year. But it was very impressive. The Longhorns as a whole had a good NFL Combine showing, which is not something that was said over about a decade because they weren't having a lot of people there. But you can see the turn that Sark has been able to make with the team just in the fact that you've got guys who are first-round talents and 3 potentially with Murphy, Worthy, and Mitchell, and then probably Tavondre Sweat falling somewhere into the second. And his workout was something to watch, because watching a dude, like, it's kind of the other end of the spectrum, like the opposite of each other, Worthy and then Sweat, like having these great workouts and these ridiculous athletes that they are.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy's fast. I think we all knew that, but didn't quite know how fast he was, and now we've got a much better idea. I don't buy the headlines that all of a sudden he's a first-rounder because he ran a fast 40. I think that's kind of silly. I think that's something you would have already known about as a scout. and had clock times and track times and all those types of things. But he's garnered a lot of attention for himself. I feel like he was going to always be a pretty highly heralded player in this draft, but now he's got a little extra sauce on it because there's that blistering time he's put up in Indianapolis. So, great weekend for him and that program and a lot of others as well who had good showings. How much it improved their stock or not, I guess we'll find out over the coming weeks, but I don't think it was, breaking news that he's fast. I think that was pretty much the one characteristic we knew about Xavier Worthy this entire time, but just how fast, again, we got to see that on full display in front of all the NFL fans paying attention. So that was a big-time just moment for him, and you could tell by how he celebrated running through the 40 and then running across the field like he did in celebration. So that was a cool moment to see as well. And, there's a great group of wide receivers he's going to be competing with, but A.D. Mitchell, I've always been a bit more – I guess I lean his way a bit more just in terms of a big play catch guy, but both of them had great weekends, and there's a terrific crop of wide receivers we're going to be hearing a lot about here over the coming weeks.
All right, so there's that. That's the Combine. It's wrapped up, and we'll have Eric Galko this week and John Cooper this week, among others, this week. Now, when we left you on Friday, there was stories by numerous college football analysts and writers and columnists who were discussing what was being floated out among college football leaders about the 14-team playoff proposal and also format when they haven't even gone to 12. But one of them was the automatic qualifiers, the number of teams that the Big Ten and the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC would get. And I'll tell you this, from what I have been told, and it was the ACC and the Big 12 almost like some were saying, hey, take this. John Wilner will join us at 4. He has a reason to think that they should, too. He'll be on with us today at 4. But I was told over the weekend that pretty much to a man that every AD in the Big 12 is basically saying this is BS. They're not going to just give in to not enough qualifiers and or the qualifiers in general as far as like we're going to get more money and also we're going to get more spots because then you get even more money. And so there is that. And we will hear from Jamie Pollard of Iowa State, the AD there, on Tuesday's show tomorrow.
Well, I don't think it's just about the number of automatic qualifiers. It's also about that stupid buy crap.
Yeah, no, that the AQs and the buys.
Yeah.
Which version are we talking about here? There's various versions. There's the one where they get one automatic qualifier. There's one where they get a couple. So I think there's a difference there in what you're pushing back against because
the one where the Big Ten and the SEC would get 3 automatic qualifiers. The ACC and the Big 12 would get 2 automatic qualifiers, and the Big Ten and the SEC would also get a first-round bye. That's the one that the Big 12 ADs, from what I'm being told, have said to basically Brett Yormark, you're on your own on this one. We don't want this.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot of politicking going on, obviously, and I do think the Big 12 and the ACC have to be mindful of the situation. I think they have to be mindful of how much of a trap they could be walking into depending on what door they want to enter because there is the element of, hey, we're trying and you guys just refuse to play ball with us. And it's like, you're demanding more qualifiers automatically and you're also getting buys that we don't get. So we don't think that's unfair. Yeah, but we hold all the cards. So how much of a plank do you want to walk out there on and how mindful do you want to be of how much leverage you actually have or don't have? I think that's going to be the interesting battle because, to the response of an automatic qualifier only allowed to go to 2 conferences, I do think that's BS. I think giving them extra auto qualifiers in comparison, like 3 versus 2 or something along those lines, I think that's fair to do and to have set up. But at some point, you can't have everything. And so, the tug and what am I trying to say here? The tug of war back and forth with who gets what and all of that's going to be fascinating because there's many more conversations to come, and I don't think either side's going to lie down easily, but I know one side better sleep with one eye open because you don't know what's being worked up, and you already know the TV networks are on their side more than they're on your side because they make more money for the TV networks, and the TV networks are some of the ones pulling the strings. Not saying they're the ones making all the calls, but if they're going to have to choose in the long run what they're going to invest more in, they've already done that. We've seen that. So, what leverage do you even have to play around with? Figure that out, and then, fight as much as you can, but there also will come a point where they could just say, all right, then we are going to break off, and then you're done. And then you better be ready to have a response to whatever that is, and you better be ready to do your own thing potentially. So, yeah, there's a lot of options out there on the table and a lot of discussions to go, but I don't know if I'd say tread lightly, but just tread smartly if you're the Big 12 and the ACC.
And the problem with the TV people being so influential in this is, look, you do need their input and that, like, their expertise is valued, but on the whole, they're going to take the path of least resistance every time because they've got shareholders. Like, these are big, gigantic conglomerates. They've got to be able to sell pretty hard numbers to people and not things that are kind of in theory. And that's where the SEC and Big Ten have the other two kind of up against the wall because they've created this gigantic, brand farm of all these college football names
that they can go dip into really if they want to ever again, because all they need to do is say, we want to go get Kansas now.
Yeah.
And then talk with the networks and go. And we already know ESPN's not exactly anti-cratering a conference here, fellas. But so there is that part of it as well. To your point, Paul.
So like they're only gonna look at it this way, and they're not gonna look at all these other things. And as you've seen with anything, and it goes with media negotiations, a lot of times that they'll roll the dice on what they want as their ideal situation and fix it on the back end. And so if their ideal situation doesn't involve a lot of these teams, even if that winds up being a bad idea, they can always fix it on the back end, because they think their idea is the best idea.
Well, here's the thing. It's just the timing of it all. Mm-hmm. I mean, if there was a playoff in place for another 8 years, then I don't think you're sweating it too much. The fact of the matter is you go tell somebody to break off and they say, okay, and they got the power of the networks behind them, and they've got 2 years to sit there and get this situated. And then it's all free and clear in 2 years. There's not like a bunch of contracts you'd have to buy out and do all those different things. Not saying it would be as easy as that, but that upcoming contract and with all that's being talked about and conversed about right now and argued over, that's the timing is very interesting and a big part of that whole storyline as well. So, yeah, the pushback, I'm glad to hear that. But, to what extent can you do that without crossing a line? That's going to be the tricky part of all this.
John Wilner, again, at 4 o'clock, his article today, College Football Controversy, Playoff Controversy, proposal for AQ spots actually, this is his opinion, benefits the Big 12 and ACC once realignment kicks in. He'll join us at 4, Matt Brown at 3:30. Also, here are the quotes. Dave Wilson did a great job, got some quotes from some coaches who are a part of the Big 12 and also the ACC when that was floated on Friday, over the week, really. Sonny Dykes said automatic first-round buys for the Big 10 and SEC is like the NFL saying the Cowboys get a first-round buy since they have more fans than the Bengals. How preposterous is that? Also, more from Big 12 and ACC coaches, Mike Gundy, a playoff format that guarantees a first-round bye to any team, division or conference before the season starts is unheard of in any sport as far as I'm aware, based on the premise proposed. A team could be undefeated, ranked number 1 in the country, and still not receive a first-round bye because teams were awarded one before the season ever began. Here's one from Mike Gundy again. This is from Gundy. We need to let the teams decided on the field reward those who are most deserving. It's not rocket science. And Mac Brown, North Carolina football coach, I feel the 4 conference champs should be treated equally and all should have a first-round bye. It's hard to be a champion, so it does matter. Those are 4 that came out Friday. Great job by our good friend Dave Wilson on the article.
Yeah, 4 with a first-round bye, is essentially what we're going to have, going forward with 12. And that doesn't even mean they're conference champions. It's just however it goes. But I could not agree with Mike Gundy more. To determine it before the season. And it's one of those things that you don't even have to do that much work to figure out, to go back and say, okay, well, there's bad years in every conference's history where they would not have had a team that deserved a first-round bye. Even the mighty SEC and Big Ten, there are years that has that. So giving them that beforehand is just insane. It's just insane. Now, if you want to, 3-3-2-2, like, you know, as far as automatic qualifiers, if that's the compromise you have to make, I guess it is. And like I said before, part of the reason that Greg Sankey never wanted automatic qualifiers was because in his plan for world domination, saying that you're only going to get 3 means that there's going to be years where he only gets 3 when he could have 6.
Right.
And that's not what he wants. He wants to be able to say, like, well, we've got, you know, all these teams, we've got half the playoff field. That's why the SEC is better. But if you're on the other side of that coin, if you're the Big 12, knowing if you only have 1, then a lot of years they're probably only going to give you that 1. So it's a very interesting balance that you have to try and navigate through all this.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about, you know, pushing back and kind of knowing what to push on and how much leverage you have and all that. One thing that I would not stop pushing against is the automatic burst for the SEC and the Big Ten. I think that's absolutely effing ridiculous. I think that's a terrible idea. I don't care how good, how much money they make, how many brands they have. I think that's just ruining the entire spirit of the game itself. It's to sit there and say, these two get buys before even games are played. That's not college football, man. I don't care how popular you are or how many teams you have in your conference, how much territory you can claim. That's garbage. That is garbage to sit there and say, we haven't played a game, but these two get automatic bursts. The NFL doesn't do that. No, I mean, as Gundy pointed out, or Tykes, no sport does this. And so here's college football again with the worst postseason execution of any major sport for the majority of the time that I've been watching sports, if not all. And this is just an awful idea in my estimation. And this is one that, you know, like Paul said, the number of bursts, that's where I kind of point to the Big 12 or the ACC, whoever might push back against that and say, all right, you're going to have an argument for sure, but how much of an argument do you have? How much can you really push that? The automatic qualifiers thing, I'd burn it all down. I'd do, no matter what the consequences were. And so that's why I would never be in a position like that. But that's one I'm pushing back against until I can't push back any further. You want to have extra qualifiers? Fine, because you have more money, and I mean, you're going to ultimately have an advantage either way. That's one thing that we can settle on somehow or another. You're not going to get 5 and we only get 1, but we can meet in the middle. But the whole you automatically get somebody just moving on through, no questions asked, I think that is garbage. And so I hope that's not a part of this in the long run, because even as a fan of a team that would be eligible for that, that's just not what I feel like college football is supposed to be.
Let me reiterate, and you guys both great comments, is that I've been told the ADs in the Big 12 across the board are in line with basically calling this BS. Now, when it gets to negotiations and nut-cutting time and whatever else in between, we will see what happens. I do not know what position Brett Yormark has at this particular time, but I even mentioned to somebody in administration is like, he needs to come out and say something. Somebody does. Jamie Pollard, again, Iowa State, will join us tomorrow, who's also on the NCAA men's basketball tournament committee, so it'll be fun to talk with him tomorrow. Now, Donovan Smith, Houston. He can be up, he can be down. He can sometimes throw the ball to the wrong team. He beat Baylor in front of us when we watched the game at McLean Stadium. Will not. Joseph Duarte with this about 30 minutes ago. Be in spring practice after undergoing labrum surgery on his right shoulder this offseason, according to the Cougars head coach Willie Fritz.
Well, that's not good news for the Cougars at all.
It did not say in his throwing shoulder.
Yeah.
But I would think that most likely that's probably the case. If it's the left shoulder, he's still out.
Yeah.
Because that's a 3 to 4, 5 or 6 month rehab with a labrum or torn rotator cuff or something similar to that.
Yeah, that's it's not great for the Cougars, especially going to spring practice when you're trying to reestablish yourselves with a new system and everything else that's going to happen under Willie Fritz. But I have faith that Willie Fritz will figure it out. He's dealt with things like this before, so.
Yeah, it's a blow. I mean, we'll see what the timetable actually is, but you don't want to lose your starting quarterback with a brand new head coach before spring drills. So the timing of it stinks. You'd rather him miss spring, though, than miss big-time meetings and practices and whatnot leading into the season. So if he can avoid that, that's ultimately all that matters. He can still learn the offense. He just won't be able to run through it the same way he would healthy during spring ball. So not the worst news in the world, because it could always be worse, but let's see what that timetable actually looks like. If it's just missing spring, though, I think he'll be fine in the long run, and they've got some other guys they can turn to get through spring ball. But, yeah, definitely not what you want to see with a first-year head coach trying to put in his offense.
USC is taking a running backs coach from TCU. This was Bruce Feldman earlier today, as they have taken Anthony Jones from TCU to become their coach at USC in under Lincoln Riley, as still some of these coaching the role, what do you call it? The carousel, or that. And it's just constant. Like Georgia State, Georgia, whoever, South Carolina. Here's one now. Anthony Jones heads to USC. Here's one of interest. EA Sports, and Matt Brown will join us in about 20 minutes, less than that. They now have 10,000 plus athletes who have opted to be a part of the game.
87% of the people that they sent out the forms to have signed up for them. I'm curious to ask Matt, is that this is actually, I think, one of the good things about having NIL involved in this, in that a lot of people have NIL agents or open doors or NIL collect, like all these things that they have that they'll do it. But if you had just tried to do it the old way, where you sent out 10,000 emails to college students and said, would you please sign this to be in the video game? A week or two into this thing, they would be at like 1,000 because that's how college students are. But now you have NIL agents, companies that are like, hey, you got to sign this thing. Plus the social media aspect of it. I'm sure people, if your friends walked up to you, if Craig's going to be in the game, I'm like, hey, did you sign the thing? You're to be in the game. I can't wait to play with Craig Smoak for Oklahoma. Like those kind of things helped it. So I'm curious about the 13% that haven't signed up yet, who those are, and if it's just people who have not, filled out the online form yet.
By the way, on Donovan Smith, it was his right shoulder, his throwing shoulder.
All right, well, we'll see what happens there with the timetable, like I said. But, definitely don't want you to miss spring ball, and Willie Fritz is trying to put his offense in. But something to keep eyes on, obviously. And with the game, I mean, it's almost like a whole new cottage industry is just covering this video game, it seems like, huh? I mean, every day there's some new little crumb of information. So that's exciting for people who are over the moon about the game coming back, and I'm excited about it. And so I guess the question I have is kind of like Paul, who hasn't signed and who would be impactful that hasn't signed? Is there a Marvin Harrison Jr. level type player, if this were last year, Caleb Williams or Drake May or someone like that has refused to sign for this next go-round? That'll be the most interesting part to me, if there are some big-time names that are held out. But even then, like, if you miss on a couple guys, is anybody going to blink an eye? No, they're not. Nobody's bigger than this game, not even Caleb Williams last year. So
I can just make him.
I mean, yeah, and then EA, but EA said they're not going to allow that. Somehow or another, they're going to have something in place to where you can't make an exact copy of Caleb Williams if he had decided not to be in the game. So I don't know if they don't allow you to do the same measurements or skin color or hair or whatever the way you could do that would be. That's what I'm actually fascinated to know how they're going to prevent that. But they said they're going to prevent that in an article I read a month ago. So that's going to be very interesting how that's even doable. But, yeah, if it's not up to snuff, then somebody will just go and do that. Or you just will play with a guy who doesn't look like him, but you're not really focused on eye color when they're out there running around doing the option or something, So I don't think that if Caleb Williams is the color green, you're still going to treat him like Caleb Williams, if this were last year's game. So, that's exciting to see that most everybody's put their hat in the ring, and I guess we'll see who hasn't here pretty soon.
Of 80-something%, as you mentioned, I would think about 10% are just college kids, no matter who they have as NIL or somebody in compliance or whoever. They just they got a lot going on in their minds and just haven't thought much about it. One other note in college football, Robert Robbins, the president, Arizona, we've heard about the university and their debt that they're trying to get through. Obviously, there's been a lot of transition at Arizona. Arizona's Robert Robbins has a 10% salary reduction. That comes from a Board of Regents who mentioned Robbins was on board with this idea. 10% of what? I don't know. Really, I guess 100,000 over a 1.1 million, whatever the number might be. But Robert Robbins, part of what Arizona's dealing with when it comes to their athletic department and the university budget deficit that they have. And finally, before we go to Matt Brown, Johnny Manziel over the weekend. Johnny even admitted that, listen, I was not good as far as my values, my morals, etc. But after thought and consideration, I will humbly remove myself from the Heisman Trophy ceremony until Reggie Bush gets his trophy back. Doesn't sit right with my morals and values that can't be on that stage with us every year. Reggie is the Heisman Trophy. Do the right thing, NCAA. The ball is in your court.
Yeah, this is one of those things that, look, if Johnny's saying, like, look, if you're going to take away Reggie's for what he did, like, man, I was cheating my ass off.
And has admitted it.
Like, I've admitted it. Like, I was not the best human being over that time. He was a drug addict and an alcoholic and, like, going through all this stuff. And so, you know, if you're going to get on Reggie Bush for getting a house for his parents through an agent that wasn't even by California standards, all that, like, awesome of a house, like, it wasn't a bad house. I mean, it was a nice house, but it wasn't, what you think for, losing your Heisman Trophy. I know that Ron Goldman got O.J. Simpson's and melted it down, but, like, they never took that away, so I think it's long overdue time to just let bygones be bygones and let Reggie Bush be back in the Heisman Trust in that room and let him go to the ceremony.
Yeah, good for Johnny. I mean, taking a stand over something that he obviously feels very strongly about. I'm curious if others join him in this, I guess, protest, but certainly a lot of people feel the same way about Reggie Bush and the Heisman Trophy. I mean, the rules were the rules they were at the time, but to your point, Paul, I mean, Johnny was breaking rules as well, and they didn't strip him. So, yeah, I'd be totally fine with Reggie Bush getting his Heisman back. If he doesn't, then it's not something I'm losing sleep over either. But, I certainly would be compelled by more joining Johnny in this argument and seeing what kind of pressure they could put on the trust and those involved to try and reverse that decision. Although the last time there was kind of noise about this, they were pretty firm that they weren't reversing course. So will Reggie ever get his Heisman back? We'll see. But he's got some people in his corner, so that's got to be great for him to feel that support and hopefully feel like that means that if it can keep building, he can eventually get what he wants, which is getting that trophy back.
We will get tonight into the schedule. One game in the Big 12. We'll do that in basketball. Also the rest of the week, the top 25 poll, the Big 12 standings, with 2 games left to play the rest of this week, and then everything ends on Saturday, and then the men head to Kansas City, the women there starting here in the middle of this week. And also a note about Chris Mortensen, who passed away at the age of 72. Matt Brown, Extra Points, joins us with Paul Craig. I'm David Smoak on 365 Sports. Matt, thank you for your time. On the EA Sports, the 10,000 or whatever, the opt-in, what is the percentage of that? Do you know? And has there been anybody that you yet know about that has said, I want more money than what they're going to give us?
I do not know of any athlete that has said, I want more money than what they're going to give us. In part because EA is giving more money to a lot of those stars. You have the $600 plus the cost of the game as the base, but EA has contracted with well over 100 college athletes to promote the game on social media. And some of those aren't even college football players. And those marketing ambassador contracts are worth, I've been hearing anywhere from the low thousands up to the low 5 figures. Potentially more than a player might get for Madden if you're a real superstar. So everyone's been pretty happy. 10,000 athletes, based on the number of athletes that EA has said they want to include, is about 90% of the total. And that is, I will freely admit to this, a much higher number than I expected at this stage. Not because I don't think athletes are happy with that deal. It's because they're 20, and getting anybody to do any kind of paperwork at scale is difficult. So the fact that this many people have opted in, I think, is a sign of the hard work that many, many football operations and campus NIL personnel have done to make sure the athletes get this taken care of.
So would you say that of that, near 90, I guess it's 87 to 90% of those kids that haven't signed up, there's probably a good chunk of them that are just being 20 and not signing up for the thing?
I would say that's almost all of it. We may have a small handful of athletes whose representatives are agitating for more money right now. It's rarely the athlete themselves for this kind of thing. I would encourage everybody, when they're covering NIL or recruiting or anything that college athletes might do, the simplest response is somebody being 20. And I would say that would represent the vast majority of people who haven't opted in yet.
Matt, I think we can all agree that nobody's bigger than the game. I mean, everybody will just move on if there's not a specific player in the game and keep playing their dynasty mode and recruiting anyways. But I did recall reading something a few weeks ago about how they were going to try and prevent, let's say if it was last year or I guess this year, and one of the best players in the country didn't want to play in the game for whatever reason, that they were going to have some sort of preventative measure where you couldn't copy them exactly and create them in the game. Is that true? Is there some sort of thing that they're working around to try and prevent that in case somebody opts out?
Yeah, that is exactly what EA's vice president of EA Sports has said to ESPN. They said that internally. When I have asked their communications and development staffers for, hey, what does that mean in practice? People have not given me more information. And I don't know if part of that is they don't want to spoil it so they can give people a 3-month head start to figure out how to get around the system. That might mean, restricting certain names that you can put in, right? Like, you can't name, you often can't edit a player or name a team something profane. If you're going to go play online, that you have blocked out words, they might just, block out names and similar names for anybody that is formally opted out of the game. But we don't know for certain. I know that many people at EA have gone to great lengths to tell me that customization and user generated content are important aspects to this release. So to any fan, I would say this just isn't worth getting freaked out about right now. The chances are that anybody that opts out is not going to be somebody you really deeply care about anyway.
All right, Matt, you saw and read and heard some of what was going around last week with the college football playoff. They're already basically talking 14, and they still don't even have everything done for 12. But what were your thoughts about the SEC and Big Ten not only getting 3 automatic qualifiers, but getting their conference champions, or at least somebody, a first-round bye, and that's just the deal? I can't imagine the ACC and Big 12, no matter the situation, would accept any of that.
I hate it. I think it is absolute loser behavior. I think it runs contrary to any competitive, ethos for not just college athletics, but any postseason. And I think it does have a good chance of happening. And honestly, to your point here, if you're a coach, this idea is outrageous, right? We would never consent as consumers to the NFL saying, okay, well, if the Dallas Cowboys, win, then they're guaranteed a playoff bye, or whoever wins the NFC North or NFC East is going to be better television ratings than the NFC South. So we're gonna guarantee them some kind of preferential treatment. That would be ridiculous. Everything else, it's just you need to win this number of games and do X, Y, or Z to achieve the postseason. But if you're the Big 12 or the ACC, you might not be negotiating from a position of strength in all of this. If you sign up for this deal, it is a way to guarantee that you're going to get a second team into the college football playoff. And if we look at the last 5 years or so and the current lineup of who's in the Big 12 and who's in the ACC, there's definitely going to be years where you wouldn't get one. The ACC last year, I think, would be a good example. Under a guaranteed system, that means we're getting a 3-loss Louisville team in there. You might be getting the last year's Oklahoma State, team in there, and under a pure at-large system, that's unlikely to happen. I hate it because it just cements this idea that, well, many of us suspect before the season, and then it just becomes very crystal clear that college football is not a meritocracy, and there are limits to how you can play your way into anything, and that some people who made the right friends 150 years ago are going to have built-in advantages. I absolutely hate it. I hate the amount of and I'm trying to think of the right word here, of how much the Big Ten and the SEC are trying to throw their collective weight around, not just in these college football playoff conversations, but within how the distribution and composition of the NCAA basketball tournaments works, how automatic bids to other NCAA postseason events work, how the settlement of House v. NCAA works. It's coming from these two leagues, and I think that's mostly to the detriment of college sports as a whole.
Yeah, Matt, the other thing is when it comes to basketball championship history, especially recently, neither of those two conferences has a big leg to stand on when it comes to the last time that the Big Ten or SEC won in basketball, with Kentucky 12 years ago. So you're not talking about the same kind of run they've had in football at all. And it's, the fact that they're trying to throw it around, when are people going to notice it, that there's a whole chunk of the country that's going to be completely non-invested in this because the powers that be told them that we're not interested in you at all?
Yeah, I mean, so basketball is a slightly different situation here, but you're absolutely right? I mean, shoot, the Big Ten, a current Big Ten team, hasn't won the NCAA men's basketball tournament while they're in the Big Ten since 2001, 2002, right? With Michigan State.
Yep.
Like dudes who are on that team have already retired from the NBA. It's ancient history, right? And even in the college football playoffs, multiple teams from the ACC have won, more than the Big Ten guys. So for this, it is explicitly about money. And the Big 12 to a lesser extent is involved in these kind of conversations here too. And the thinking is, if we are these three major leagues, however you want to slice it up, if we are the ones that are named defendants in House v. NCAA, if we are the ones that are going to be primarily responsible for paying out this gigantic antitrust settlement that's going to cost our individual schools $8, $9, $10 million a year, potentially more, then we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we are generating as much revenue as possible to make to be able to continue our standard of athletic programs despite having to pay this gigantic settlement. And their argument, and it might not be wrong, even if it's odious, is this idea that, everyone in America loves St. Peter's and everyone in America loves the first round upset. And that's what makes gives the NCAA men's tournament some magic. But they don't tune in when those teams are in the Sweet 16. What they want are gigantic, big blue blood brands that they've heard of duking it out in the Final Four. And if that means we have to kind of, put our thumbs on the scale a little bit to go kick the NEC out or the MAAC out or the Big South or some of the other, bottom 5 leagues, so we can get 11 Big 12 teams in, so we can get 11 ACC teams in, or some 18-win Ohio State team in the tournament, they're going to do that. And we can all complain about it, and I think it would make the tournament itself worse. But that, broadly speaking, is the direction things are going here. And if it turns out to make everybody less money in 10 years, nobody who made that decision will be held accountable for it.
Matt, it's the offseason, so realignment's always going to be popular, but especially with what's going on in the ACC and the last couple of years and all of the playoff setup and everything. What kind of reverberations, because I know you don't just cover the biggest schools per se, but what kind of reverberations are you kind of picking up as far as top on down, how some of these decisions or lack thereof are affecting some of the smaller schools as well?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually, and I hope to be able to have something about this reported out this week. Obviously, there's going to be realignment, fallout in the event that Florida State reaches some kind of settlement or leaves the ACC, or if North Carolina and Miami and Virginia and some of those other schools leave the ACC. But there's also conversations happening at the lower levels that are independent of what's happening at the P5, P4, P2 level. Part of that is as school leagues try to figure out how they can realign to both save money on expenses and also potentially optimize their net ratings for multiple postseason events. It might be how they can add numbers in case they lose somebody for future realignment, so they're not going to be in a position to get picked over. It might be school leagues trying to pick up the last couple of FBS independents, like we just saw with UMass joining the MAC. I know that they had been engaged with conversations with Conference USA for several weeks. I'll have some information soon that kind of explains why they made that decision. But if you're a realignment nut, I would say that beyond the ACC, I would encourage you to keep an eye out on the mid-major ranks out west, particularly within the WCC, the Big West, the WAC, looking for developments there, and also potentially the Northeast. So there's always a lot of different things kind of all happening at the same time.
Matt, if the Big 12 and ACC don't like what they have been told, or how legitimate this will ever be to go up and try to make it happen where they have the automatic qualifiers, but the SEC and the Big 10 want even more, plus more money and money, what can they do? Can they draw a line in the sand and say, go ahead and try it and see what happens?
It's a great question. And I wish I had a better answer. I assume at some point there is some proverbial red line where they'll be forced to do that. But part of the concern, right, is, hey, what happens if these two leagues decide they just don't want to be a part of the college football playoff anymore, which they don't have to be. And if they theoretically decided to leave, again, as odious as fans or people in this market might think of that, those two leagues now control what, 16 of the 20 biggest college football brands? 15 of the biggest 20 college football brands? Would a national championship that didn't involve any of those leagues be seen as legitimate? I don't think it would. I think then you would be looking back at kind of the split pole era where you had the bowl alliance, right? And you had the Big Ten and the Pac-12 kind of doing their own thing and not participating, and it didn't always lead to a completely legitimate championship. You can't have any kind of baseball postseason event without the SEC. You can't have any kind of hockey postseason event without the Big Ten, or a lacrosse postseason event without the Big Ten. So it would really jeopardize postseasons across the board. And that's a really difficult position that leadership in the Big 12 and the ACC are on now, because, hey, we want to work together on some things, like what we're doing with Congress, and what we're trying to advocate here for settlement of these lawsuits. But we also recognize that that they're not in a position of strength when it comes to figuring out how to distribute revenue or access for the college football playoff. And this isn't the kind of thing where I think Americans can riot in the streets to make sure that the Big Ten doesn't get a third automatic bid. Right? We're not Spain. We're not England. I don't know what the mechanism is to slow this stuff down.
I've always said, and we all have kind of said this, no matter how many blue bloods, alphas, number of national titles those two bigger conferences have, would it be considered legitimately by the country as a national championship if there were just 32 teams involved, or 40 teams, or whatever that number might be?
I mean, probably if it's within the Big Ten and the SEC, if a Florida State or a Baylor or a Houston or depending on how the caliber of brand outside of that group has an excellent season. One of the kind of frustrating things, right, is the epicenter of college sports media tend to be in the SEC or the Big Ten footprint. Like, how many grads of those institutions are leading voices? If ESPN and or Fox are the principal broadcasters of that breakaway tournament, do you think they're going to delegitimize it? Of course not. And then you have Chicago, you have New York, you have Atlanta, you have Charlotte, essentially you have Nashville, you have these everywhere essentially but Dallas, and I guess with the Texas and Texas A&M, that's still going to be SEC territory in a lot of ways. It's going to be hard to get around the megaphone that this isn't a legitimate tournament. Some people are not going to see it that way, and it will be messy. But it's hard to go against the behemoth, and that's in many ways, even if they haven't completely earned it on the field, which I would argue in the case of Big Ten football, even as a son of the Big Ten here myself, it's hard to go against that kind of behemoth.
Matt, continued luck with what you're doing, Extra Points and the newsletter and much more at Matt Brown EP on Twitter. A great guest for us whenever we're available, whenever he's available to be a part of the show. Appreciate his take on EA Sports, which of course is a monstrous deal, and then also where college football is on the tug of war, the turf war, when it comes eventually to the National College Football Playoff. All right, when we come back, a couple of notes to get to, including the UNLV football coach rides a bull. Not very long, but the son of a gun got on top of a bull. We had Barry Odom on, remember, during the Super Bowl week. This and more is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic LowT.com. Had somebody the other day ask me, hey, what was the name of the company that you mentioned that has low T, that checks for testosterone? 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, and Dr. Kent Petty and his staff can help you find out if you are one of those 3 or 4 men. Dr. Petty will help set you up to get your blood work. You contact him to let him know, hey, I'm not sure, but I do have the symptoms of ED and lethargic. Energy's not the same. I'm not even sleeping well. I've gained some fat, but yet I have a pretty good diet and stay somewhat active. It could be testosterone. Dr. Petty will set you up to get your blood work. He will get the results, and then will contact you if he feels like your testosterone level is too low and give you the option of a program to increase your testosterone level so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and perhaps used to be at pettyclinicallowt.com.
Rev up your excitement. Celebrate the spirit of adventure during the Jeep Celebration event. Join us at Allen Samuels in Waco as we roll out incredible deals on rugged and reliable Jeep vehicles you love. Seize the moment and drive home in the new Jeep of your dreams. With special financing options and exclusive offers, there has never been a better time to explore the world of Jeep. Hurry in, the savings won't last long. Visit AllenSamuelsDCJ.com and see them firsthand only at Allen Samuels in Waco. Let your adventure begin.
Come by, let's be friends.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Man, we do appreciate you every day when you can give us your time, whether it's watching, listening, also being involved. If you send us text, that number's always the same at 254-339-1122 in the chat room. Fired up as always today. Good to have everybody involved in that. So Barry Odom, UNLV football coach, he got on Widowmaker, which I think is like the alpha of Bulls. He wasn't on very long. I think maybe a second, or if he got onto a second or two, I don't know. But Barry Odom gets on there and said, I thought I dominated that thing. Would you do that? Would you? And again, he wasn't on very long. It's not you getting knocked off, though, that you got to be careful. It's what happens if the bull turns on you very quickly.
See, that's where it gets me. Like I would be fine getting on the bull if the bull and I could have some sort of social contract. Like, look, if you win, just take your W and go back to the pen and don't chase me. But the fact that there has to be a guy dressed up as a clown distracting the bull and hiding between barrels to prevent me from getting gored is where I draw the line. So big up to Barry Odom for doing this, because I don't mind getting bucked for 8 seconds. I mean, that's all they're trying to do, and he didn't get 8 seconds. That I don't mind. Like 8 seconds is what they're all trying to do. But if it's 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds I get thrown, fine. I get thrown off a bull. But again, there's no negotiating between me and Widowmaker as to like, all right, look, if you win, just, we'll go shake hands at the end and say good game. That's not how it works.
You're going to grab his hoof?
Yeah.
Did you guys actually watch it?
Yeah.
Okay, he lasted half a second.
No,
so if
that's
that's all you got to do, then, sign me up to raise money for my football program, which is what he was doing. So he got on a bull, and I'm sure that part was thrilling enough, but he had the headgear on, as you can see there, and that's about as long as he lasted. That's like the highlight of his ride right there. And because a half second later, he's off that thing. So, yeah, it didn't last long at all, but I'd imagine it was a thrill. He seemed like he was having a good time. And, again, he was doing this to raise money for the Rebs. And so mission accomplished as far as that goes. He's a guy who seems to be liking his time, or if not loving his time in Las Vegas so far, has done a good job with that program. So, nice little viral moment there for Barry Odom and his program. But that's not something I would walk into if not for a number of clowns protecting me and a piece of headgear and any other number of measurable safety or any other number of safety measures, because that can go south really quickly. And I think we've all probably when Live Leak was still a thing, saw the real deal bull gore videos back in the day, or the Pamplona disasters that could occur. So glad he's in one piece, because that can get really nasty real quick, but it seems like it's a lot of fun.
I thought it was awesome that he did it. Good for him. And you're right. It was, they opened the gate. He bucked like once, and Barry Odom was on the ground, but God bless him for doing that. By the way, we had Randy Peterson on. Dan Miter, thank you very much for the note. Randy Peterson of the Des Moines Register announced his retirement following the spring game, 52 years at that newspaper. I'm glad you brought that up. You were going to add something else?
Yeah, just the scary part is when you watch Odom, but this is a lot of bull rides, is when you get bucked and then you start to fall forward and then its head rears back and its neck, like his massive neck or head, slams into your face, and that's kind of what happened to him. But luckily he had that helmet on. But
you don't want to get gored. Yeah,
that's the scariest part. As far as riding it, though, you can get knocked out pretty easily that way. So but to Randy Peterson, good for him. We just talked to him last week or the week before.
Yeah, he was on last Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah,
so he's been around a long time, and just had the big news with Iowa State and the gambling probe and the different direction that's suddenly taken. So, what a career and what a bunch of big stories he's been able to cover, and best of luck to him in retirement.
Also with animals, one of the things you got to be careful of, and even a bull, if you get knocked off the bull, if you have the balls to get on one, is the fact that they will start kicking immediately. I mean, that's what they do. I mean, they've got them all tied up. They're not happy about the way they feel where it counts.
The only thing, when I was 8 years old, we went to the Mesquite Rodeo, and I did that thing where you chase after the sheep, and it's got the
mutton busting.
No, I did not do mutton busting. No, I did not do that.
Country ass Garrett mutton busting.
Hey, that's how we do.
Yeah. And look, I guarantee you, 8-year-old Garrett was probably still 6'2" and busted the crap out of a mutton.
Got to get it, man.
But no, where you tried to pull the bandana off of it and you won a prize. That's where I found out that I was not exactly feet of foot. I watched 25 kids just dart past me. I think I can run down a sheep. Nah, couldn't run down that sheep.
No. I think the most terrifying thing about that bull's name is Widowmaker.
That's
a pretty salty nickname.
Yeah, it's not Dennis.
Yeah.
Yes. Or Alpha.
Yeah, I would ride a bull named
Raphael.
Dennis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would if they said, all right, now coming out of shoot 2, here's Paul Catalina riding Dennis. I'd be like, all right.
Widowmaker.
Hey, give it time. There might be bulls starting to be called Dennis here pretty soon, or Denise. All right, so in the 4 o'clock hour, John Wilner Interesting, a couple of columns. He reached out to me earlier today. He has one on this proposed 14-team playoff, and he feels like the Pac-12, or the Big 12, excuse me, and the ACC, which has a couple of course, former Pac-12 teams, needs to think more about it. And he also rated, for right now, the Big 12 and who he thought was at the top. And I did see somebody on Twitter laugh. He goes, oh, John Wilner now covering the Big 12. He's going to cover Utah, Arizona State, and also others. So Colorado.
You got to do what you got to do.
He has nothing left. I mean, it's Washington State, Oregon State, and he's covering that too.
I would also say that he was not at the top of the list of the worst Pac-12 reporting, not by a long shot, and certainly not amongst the trash talkers. I didn't see him go really on the offensive too much. There's another John that did. TV ratings didn't matter apparently, but now think of the conversation that we're talking, and there were others as well. But yeah, with Wilner, I can see where there's still some backlash and a bad taste left in the mouth of some Big 12 fans, but I never felt like he was one that was outrightly trying to like stir the pot and get nasty with it, if that makes sense. I think he was pretty level-headed. So, I guess you look at your options, and now, if anything, he kind of, in some ways, won because I don't know if you won, but you're covering more teams now and more leagues. Now, you'd probably like it better all residing on the West Coast, I would think. We can talk to him about that. But yeah, I never really took issue with him so much as maybe some others during that whole time period.
Yeah, he'll join us in the next segment. Wrote the article about the proposal for 14 and why the Big 12 and ACC should think about it, and his thoughts about some of the early returns on what are the predictions for the 2024 football season.
Just say this about Wilner covering all of college football now, not just the Pac-12. Look, if you were a world-renowned dodo hunter back before they went extinct, did you just hang it up after you killed them all, or did you just go start hunting another animal? Like, what are you going to do? Like, oh, well, all the dodos are out. Well, I guess that means I can't do that anymore.
Well, it's a good comparison, except for the fact that dodos didn't die off. They're just scattered everywhere else now. So, like, all the teams he covered, they're in the ACC, they're in the Big 10, they're in the Big 12.
I was just using the Pac-12 as the dodo.
Right. The problem is now he's chasing all of them and scattered out.
Yeah, I think his coverage actually widened.
Yeah, it absolutely did.
And by the way, we have looked at the landscape before, and we've even had the thought process of, what if, in fact, something was to happen, all the way back to when we were in broadcasting 10 or 12 years ago, 14 years ago with Nebraska and Colorado and Missouri and A&M and then Texas OU, and we would have been fine. We would have done what we do, but it just does change a little bit about who you are covering, and you can't even add more to the mix.
Which sounds like it's better, but then again, I don't know, because now you're suddenly having to cover 5 different media days or 4 different media days versus the one where everybody was just together. So there's definitely trade-offs for it. You don't just go extinct, right, because the conference dies or is holding on with 2 teams. But you're still technically covering a Power 5 because Oregon State and Washington State are still active with the Pac-2. So, yeah, that's something we could pick his brain about.
When we come back, we will have John Wilner. He'll join us about 25 or 30 minutes around the corner. Interesting weekend covering UT and various sports with Kirk Bowles. He'll join us. Also, Texas and Baylor tonight, 8 o'clock on ESPN at the Foster Pavilion. Did you hear what Bill Self said about the Foster Pavilion in the postgame? I was there. I put it out on Twitter. He said this place is dozens and dozens and dozens times better than where Baylor used to play, which was at the Farrell Center. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and he complimented the acoustic people who they had put in the noise and the sound inside the Foster Pavilion as Baylor beat Kansas on Saturday. This is 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace, just off I-35 in the southern part of Waco. Dr. Rob Maxey and his partners put together a business that has been incredibly successful. Busy, and yet not so busy that you have to wait too long to get an appointment, and not so busy when you show up for an appointment that you have to wait really, really long, maybe 10 or 12 people in front of you. No. I have been inside their MRI machine, which is state-of-the-art, by the way, and they only charge $497, much less than the average of $1,100 for an MRI. They have someone that will call you. Your doctor has to say, hey, I need an MRI. You tell them you want it from Ideal MRI. They contact Ideal MRI. They set up the appointment. You're there. And when I've been in there, and I've been there 3 different times, in fact, I've also taken lunch to them a couple of different times over the last nearly 4 years. I was there. Somebody else was inside the MRI getting imaging. They're gone. I'm in. The techs and specialists, the ladies at the front desk are amazing. And then I've gotten the images and even a summary sent to me before the end of the evening on the same day. So if it's your shoulder, if it's your knee, if it's your back, or all of the above, idealmri.com.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
John Wilner, the Wilner Report, joins us on 365 Sports. John texted me earlier today about a column he's written about the proposal on the format of the college football playoff that is headed to 14 before they even play 12. And then also a couple other things. He had another article about the power structure entering 2024 with the 4 schools from the Pac-12 entering the Big 12. We'll get to that. John, thank you very much for reaching out to me earlier. So we've been of the impression, or most of the opinion, that the Big 12 and the ACC should by no means accept being relegated to second fiddle. But your column today, you think that this may not be such a bad idea.
I think that they should take the deal in a heartbeat. And the main reason is, well, there's a couple of reasons. One is it values them pretty highly, right? I mean, they're given, in terms of access, they get 2 bids. SEC and Big Ten get 3. They're getting 2/3 of the value. And I would argue that there's no other metric used in college sports that would value the ACC and Big 12 at 2/3 of the Big Ten and SEC, right? TV money, playoff bids, brand, audience. None of those metrics would give the new ACC and the new Big 12 a 2/3 valuation. The other thing, too, is what's the alternative? To me, that's the biggest issue, right? The alternative could be that they only get 1 automatic bid. The alternative could be that there's only at-large bids. And I would argue that the ACC and Big 12 should take the chance to get a collective 4 out of 14, right? They're in it together, essentially. You got a chance to get 4 out of the 14 guaranteed, I would take it.
What about the automatic first-round bye of the Big 12, where the Big 12 and ACC is left out? Is that a kicker that would change your mind? Yeah, okay.
That's garbage. I think they should call their bluff on that. And if that means, like, if the SEC and Big Ten said, we'll give you 2 automatic bids, but you got to take us getting the opening round buys with the top 2 seeds, they should call their bluff. Say, no way. And dare them to go off and form their own playoff, because I don't think they really want to go form their own playoff. There's a lot of complications to that. I'm not sure that ESPN wants that to happen. I would call their bluff and tell them to pound sand. Certainly, you cannot give them automatic buys before the season even starts. That's preposterous. I think that that's a negotiating ploy for them to get something else, whether it's governance, voting rights in the governance structure, or whether it's a revenue deal. I think that that's a negotiation tactic.
Yeah, John, I just could not imagine the Big 12 athletic directors and Brett Yarmark, and the same with Jim Phillips and his ADs, trying to explain to his coaches why you can be 13-0 entering the playoff and number 2 in the country and not get a bye. Like that.
No, well, I mean, it'd be bad for the sport, right? Now, I'm one who believes the last group of people you should be listening to is the coaches. When you're trying to develop a structure to benefit the sport, but to me, I mean, it's just not tenable for anybody, and I'm not sure. It's an insult also to the Big Ten and the SEC schools. It's like, you know what, we may not be good enough to do this when everybody knows they should be good enough to do it every year. It's ridiculous. I think that you know how they started off this thing with trying to get 4 automatic bids for the SEC and Big Ten. I think that was a negotiating ploy to get it to 3, and I think that the top 2 seed thing is a negotiating ploy to get something else out of the ACC and Big 12.
So you're of the belief, and I think most people realize the money part of it, about how powerful the Big Ten and SEC are, and if you don't know, let them tell you. But at the same time, it's reality, as you said. The logos, the brands, the attendance, and all of that. What about the percentage of the pie, of the 100% pie of the college football playoff when it goes to 14? Should those 2 conferences have more entering, no matter how many teams they may get into the playoff?
I think that they probably should have the revenue be commensurate with the number of automatic bids. And then there's also a separate pool for the at-large teams. And then there's going to have to be a separate pool for Notre Dame and the Group of 5, right? I mean, you can't. That's got to be accounted for. So, like, to me, why don't you make 60% of it is in the guaranteed pool, so that's based on your automatic bids, and then 40% is based on the at-large and Notre Dame and the Group of 5, or something like that. That's how I think they'll end up breaking it down. And the other piece to it is, right, we all know it's going to 16. I don't know if it'll be in 2 years or in 5 years, but it's going to go to 16. If the Big 12 and ACC have 2 automatic bids in the 14-team playoff, that positions them for a better deal in the 16-team playoff. You're kind of negotiating now for your status in the future. And the higher your floor now, the better off you're going to be in the 16-team event.
John, I had always contended that Greg Sankey, one of the reasons he didn't initially propose this, and of course things have kind of worked out his way anyway, because they, always do, that he didn't want automatic qualifiers, was because he wanted to be able to say most years, like, look, I got 5 out of the 14 or 5 out of the 12. Or look at this year, I got 6 out of the 12. And if he gave up automatic qualifier spots, that means he would never get to that number. But he may now even get to that, especially if they go to 16 anyway.
Yeah, well, even in the 14 team, I mean, if you kind of game it out, right, if the SEC has 3 autos in a 14 team and there's 3 at-large bids, right, in a year where Notre Dame isn't great, those 3 automatic bids are probably going to get split between the SEC and the Big Ten. So the SEC could get 2 of them. So there may be some years where they have 5. I kind of figured that it would be an average of 4 total. If those 2 leagues each got 3 automatics, they'd on average they'd get 1 more at large. But it may be a little more than that, maybe 4.5 total. A lot of it would depend on what the criteria is for Notre Dame getting in, because they don't have a conference right there. They're going to have to be at large. Know that they will assign a whole separate criteria for the Irish.
John, how was it taken? There was a lot of, I guess, expectation on social media that Kirk Schultz would be able to put up a bit more of a fight than I guess he ended up being able to put up in terms of holding out and disrupting any change to the playoff. What's kind of the reaction been, and was that expected on your end that was not going to be as much of a hiccup as maybe some thought it could be?
Yeah, I never got the sense from him that he was going to hold the whole thing up. I think he wanted to have a chance to make the case for the Pac-12 to be given a seat at the table starting in 2026, right, when there's the whole new contract cycle. But the bottom line is there is no table in 2026. There's nothing at this point. And it's also hard. He was doing it because he thinks that it's going to be the Pac-8 or the Pac-10 by then, because they are going to rebuild the conference. But I also feel like he knew the writing was on the wall. I think it was more of a, let's do our due diligence here and make our case, try to stay as relevant as possible. But I never, ever got the sense from him, and I've spoken to him a number of times over the last, 6-9 months, that he was going to hold up the move to 5-7. Because 5-7 is better for Washington State and Oregon State, because they have to get in through the at-large pool.
What is most likely to happen? The WAC adds those 2, or Washington State, Oregon State somehow get most or a lot from the WAC and create a different conference, or whether they call it the Pac whatever again?
Well, I think that they're going to call it the Pac something. And it's got to be 8 teams, according to NCAA rules, it has to be 8 teams minimum by the 2026 football season. I think what they're going to do is execute a reverse merger, and they're going to probably end up taking the best 8 or 9, 7, 8, 9 from the Mountain West, and then they may try to add from the American. They may try to get into Texas a little. Rice, Tulane, Memphis. I don't know exactly what their thinking is, but I've heard that theory that they would want to try to expand the footprint outside of just kind of the Mountain and the Pacific time zones.
What would be their, so say Florida State and Clemson blow up the ACC, would they kind of hold out hope that they might get roped into there, or is that maybe more of a long shot for them?
Well, no, they're holding out hope that they're going to get into the Big 12 if everything blows apart. Or, if Tallahassee there's a ripple effect and the ACC collapses, they're hoping that the whole thing kind of restructures and they get into, I'm not even sure you could call it the Big 12 at that point, because it would be like 2014 massive conference that is basically opposing the SEC and the Big Ten. I don't know exactly what it would be like, but that's kind of their hope is, hey, you know what? Let's see if we can get in the Big 12 eventually. I think the chances of them getting into the ACC are 0. I think the chances of them eventually getting in the Big 12 are probably 1%, but it's not 0. And the other thing they're wondering, if the ACC does move apart, would Stanford and Cal just come back out west, right? If they can't get in the Big 10, will they come back and help Washington State and Oregon State reform the conference? Because if you have Stanford, I mean, Stanford's got a national brand and has some appeal to the networks. You could rebuild something that would not be a bad football conference.
John, what's it like? You had the cozy and geographically sensible setup with the Pac-12, and we know what happened there. For you as a reporter now, it's scattered all over the country. You got Cal and Stanford in the ACC. You got schools in the Big 12. You got schools in the Big 10. How do you approach this? Does it make it better in some ways? I'd imagine travel-wise, no, but the stories, you're now covering, I guess, on a daily basis, 4 conferences or 5 still with the Washington State, Oregon State, P2. What's that like on your end? Is it more work? What does that look like?
It's fascinating. I should preface this by saying that I feel terrible for Oregon State and Washington State, and for the athletes and the people at those schools who work there, and everybody is facing budget cuts. But for me, it is absolutely fascinating, and I think it's going to be an incredible next 2 years, 3 years in college sports, and especially college football. All of the issues the NCAA is dealing with, athletes becoming employees, portal, NIL, the playoff, the House lawsuit for $5 billion or whatever it is. I mean, to me, at the ACC, it is the most interesting time ever in college sports. And the things that happen off the field are going to affect all the schools on the field, their budgets, their recruiting, ability to retain coaches, everything. And I'm really looking forward to how it all evolves and writing about it from the perspective of all these schools. It doesn't matter to me what conference banner they're participating under. It's still fascinating stuff, and the fans are still super interested.
Yeah, we've had to look at the possibility over the last 12 to 14 years ourselves. And when people died, the Big 12's dead. All right, well, then who do we cover, and what does that include as far as anybody new or maybe or not? John, you also had an article. You shared it with me on the Big 12 and where the power rankings are now. And, of course, the conference has grown with the 4 schools from the Pac-12. How many of those 4, Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, do you feel, at least as of now, are a part of the upper half of the Big 12?
Yeah, I think Utah and Arizona are well positioned. I'm picking the Utes to win it based on what we know right now, and with the transfer portal opening in the second half of April, you kind of have to rethink everything once we get through that stage. But right now, I really like Utah to win it. I think that they would have competed for the Pac-12 championship this year if they hadn't been absolutely decimated with injuries and not had their quarterback for the entire season. And I'm a big believer with injuries that there's typically a reversion to the mean. And if Utah had this outlier season last year with injuries, that they're going to be pretty healthy this upcoming season. And if they're pretty healthy, I think that they've got a great chance to win it. And I think Kansas, Oklahoma State, Arizona, maybe Kansas State, to me, that looks like the top tier. But when I was going through it, the interesting thing now that you have to account for, and I did this when I did Big Ten power rankings too, is the scheduling, right? Because there's so many misses, and who you miss is a crucial component, I think, to how you pick the conference.
I want to go back when I asked you about the WAC. It's the Mountain West. Someone corrected me in the chat room. Yeah, the Mountain West, not the WAC. I'm still going back to when Arizona State was independent, too. So I'm a little bit different with that. Craig?
Yeah, John, with Arizona, is that all because of having the big-time quarterback, the big-time wide receiver, and Fafita McMillan? You lose Jed Fish, obviously, to Washington, but it doesn't seem like they've really lost any steam in terms of people feeling like they can come into the Big 12 and make some noise. Is that because of those two primarily, given the turnover this offseason?
Yeah, I think so. For sure, those two. Jacob Manu is an all-conference linebacker. I think Brent Brennan was the right hire for them, and he retained a lot of guys. I mean, they lost far fewer players to Washington than Washington lost to Alabama and to the transfer portal. I mean, Washington's roster was completely decimated. Arizona's is not. And I think that there's a lot of momentum there for them. And again, that was also an issue where I looked at the schedule. I thought, you know what, not only the misses break for them pretty good, but also the home road situation. I mean, teams that have got, to me, the teams that have to play Arizona and Utah and Kansas State, right? Those teams are at a disadvantage compared to teams that are going to end up playing, Cincinnati and UCF, Houston, and you have to really kind of dig into the schedule model that the Big 12 set up to kind of see how that's going to impact the race.
John, just real quick, I want to go back to Utah. We've never gotten a chance to interview. I guess Smokey did one time, Kyle Whittingham, right?
Yep.
But we've never, the three of us,
and
haven't.
I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah. Would you? Would grizzled be a good adjective for Kyle Whittingham?
Yeah, I'd go with grizzled. I don't think that's the only adjective, but grizzled, sure. He's been Utah's coach since he took over for Urban Meyer. I think it was December of 2004. Right, he's been there for 20 years as a head coach. That alone makes him an anomaly. I'm not sure if there's anybody currently coaching that could approach 20 years on the job. I might be missing some. Yeah, right. Is Gundy the same? 20 years?
Pretty close.
Pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. So Grizzly, yeah, but he's also, I would say, wise. He is tough as nails. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw. They had a Game Day did a broadcast. I can't remember. It might have been I don't remember who Utah was playing at home. Might have been Oregon. And he rode up on his motorcycle to the Game Day set, like he was riding with Dennis Hopper in a movie. But so he's got he's a very interesting guy. I think he's a phenomenal coach. And I'm sure, you guys will eventually have him on. He's really sharp, too. He understands the big picture of college sports in a way that, a lot of the younger coaches I don't think do.
John, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thanks for reaching out to me and us. John Wilner, the Pac-12 hotline, the Wilner hotline now, and also a part of a slew of the newspapers in the California area with us on 365 Sports.
Dennis Hopper, now there was a wild life. My goodness, that's putting it as mildly as possible. But just saw him and just watched True Romance the other day. And, saw some Dennis Hopper in there. But good stuff there from Wilner. And I wanted to make sure and ask about just the love Arizona's getting this preseason. So he laid it out pretty well there. A lot of retention given the turnover that you would come to expect with Jed Fish Bolton, but they've been able to manage that pretty well. So that's going to be a really fun team to have into the mix. Utah obviously is getting a lot of the preseason love, and that makes all the sense in the world. So, it's going to be fun to debate that for the next few months, but having another injection of some teams into this league, in the Big 12 at least, is going to make for some interesting predictions, at least this first year, as everybody kind of tries to get their bearings and knowledge up on who's who and what's what around all these different teams.
I'd like to get a hold of Dillingham. Hopefully we get golly, I just went blank on Arizona, the new coach. Brennan. And obviously the Dion thing, I reached out earlier. I'm probably never going to get it like Dion when he was a player or a personality. That doesn't mean we won't keep trying. We're going to I'm going to make a prediction of the 16 Big 12 teams. Kirk Bowles is next. We're going to get 11 of the coaches on this year.
Okay.
At some point, starting like now through the end of the year.
Here's what I say as our trade on Dion. You and I were on the Dion show, our voices, for 2 seconds.
There
right?
you go. There's
5 seconds.
our,
okay,
yeah.
So let's say 5 seconds. Well, he is 500,000 times more famous than we are, so we should get 500,000 more seconds with him.
Yeah, I agree.
So there you go.
Well, we had him at the Super Bowl one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who from the actual Big 12 as it stands right now that we haven't had on. We had pretty much
never had Venables.
Never. Well, I mean, not counting him any longer.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
I'm even well.
I'm
Matt
saying like
Campbell,
moving forward. Yeah,
we got to go to a break here, but Campbell, yes.
Yeah.
Kleiman, yes. We have not had Leipold on. It's been kind of
I think
a tough nut
Leipold's
to
the main
crack.
one. Gundy as well. Gundy doesn't do many interviews though. I
no,
don't
he's
think.
not. We've had Neil Brown. We've had Fritz. We had Holgerson before Fritz.
Malzahn.
Obviously, Joey.
I'm looking at a list. I think the only ones are
Malzahn.
Gundy and Leipold. I think of the
We had
current
Satterfield,
structure.
right? Yeah.
I think
And
those are the only
we'll
two.
keep banging on that drum. All right, when we come back, Kirk Bowles, Texas, and Baylor tonight. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store located at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. I went by there over the weekend and bought myself, I don't even know why, I just did, a tomahawk ribeye. I've got it all wrapped up. It's in the freezer. That's going to be for a special event. That is like what the Vikings used to use. It's a big, thick, beautiful ribeye with a big, large bone, kind of like a hatchet. Tomahawk ribeye, that's what they call it that way. And I can't wait to taste it, can't wait to cook it, can't wait to eat it, and I will. They have a butcher shop with all the meat you want and, of course, a bakery with all the sweets you want, whether it's daily made kolache and fresh bread. And then on top of that, if you want, for example, I got to get this, a can of Rotel tomatoes, some kind of pasta, seasonings, marinades, they have it. And on top of that, they also have these big, huge areas with nothing but like brisket and tri-tip inside these coolers. They look like troughs, so to speak, and they have fresh vegetables and a lobster tank. So they have all of what I've said and even more. Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, how lovely are your SUVs. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, I love the trucks you have for me. Strong and tough with luxury, room for all my family. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, you are the dealership for me.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Tonight, 8 o'clock on ESPN at the Foster Pavilion, Texas. 9-9 now, or 8-8, excuse me, in the Big 12 as they've had a nice little run and a team that's going to be in the tournament. Just a matter of what seed they're in. Baylor with a nice win against KU, and now they 10-6 overall in the conference after the win against the Jayhawks on Saturday. Kirk Bowles, Austin American Statesman on 365 Sports. How would you describe the season that Rodney Terry and Texas have had at this point? Kirk, thanks for your time, by the way.
I would say topsy-turvy with a whole lot of turvy. It's been disappointing, Smoke, to be honest. And I think nobody truly expected another Elite Eight caliber team, I don't think. But you know how that can spoil you really quickly. And they get spoiled really quickly around here. And they didn't replace the talent they lost. I'll put it that way. And they just haven't looked as cohesive with great chemistry like they did all year last year.
Kirk, what do you think the long-term future is for Rodney Terry? Because this is a roster, like I know they didn't maybe expect an Elite Eight, but given the talent that they have, especially in the starting 5, I think the expectations were higher than being the first or the last 4 in most bracket projections.
Yeah, they weren't looking for a bubble team, Paul. You're right. No question about that. I think everybody kind of figured it'd be something in between, like, okay, not that you take for granted a Sweet 16, type of season, but I think it was kind of more in that area because, they lost, Marcus Carr and Timmy Allen, Jabari Rice, Christian Bishop, guys that played a whole lot and had been together a couple years. And then they just didn't make the inroads in the portal, like they did a couple of years earlier. They did get Max Asmus out of Oral Roberts, obviously, and he's as good a scorer as Texas has had in a long time. But they could have used another wing. They kind of dropped the ball there, and they've kind of looked for a reliable third offensive option all year long, and that's kind of one of the things that's plagued them. And they just haven't played great defense. I like they have before.
So, Kirk, how would you describe them rolling in after a couple of wins? I mean, the Texas Tech win out in Lubbock, I think, was surprising to a lot of people. Oklahoma State, everybody's kind of, hit them up this year. But what kind of ball is Texas playing rolling into tonight here in Waco?
Well, much, much better. And, I didn't mean to downplay them that much because, like Smoak said, I mean, I'm almost positive they're going to be in the playoff. When he accidentally said 9-9, Texas would take 9-9 right now, with tonight's road game and then Saturday against Oklahoma here in Austin. So they actually come in with a degree of some momentum. You mentioned the win at Texas Tech, which was kind of surprising, and I don't know if Texas Tech, just didn't respond with the same sense of urgency Texas had because Texas was sitting there at 6-8. They weren't sure of anything. And, now to win those two and get back to level 8-8 was just, that was the first time they'd won back-to-back games since January, back when they beat Baylor in Oklahoma. So it's been, 5 weeks since they'd won 2 in a row. But they seem to, their confidence is is back a little bit. And I think they're getting great play off the bench from Brock Cunningham and Kendall Weaver. You know, that's been a real big benefit for them, I'd say, the last few weeks.
Brock Cunningham has been called a lot of things, and probably some of them are very true. That deal in Lubbock could have gotten even worse. I was amazed it didn't get more out of hand. What would you say? Is he an instigator? Is he? What is he for them? Is he an inspiration at times for them because he kind of gets people on edge? What is he?
Well, he's definitely, you know, a spark plug for them, and he's a nice guy. He's not, you know, we've all covered some guys when we went, I don't know, I may want him in the foxhole with me, but you know, he can get a little dirty. He does the dirty work, but he's not a dirty player. He doesn't mind getting on the floor, and he's going to be physical. You know, don't get me wrong, we all know that, but he's not a dirty player, even though that was as clear a flagrant 2 foul as I've ever seen. And there was just so much contact there. That was an easy call. But he's a little bit of a villain on the road, but he's beloved at home. And, you know, when he was ejected from that Tech game, you know, he was giving them the hook and horn way to the locker room. So, you know, he does kind of delight in that whole rivalry thing. That's for sure.
I was going to say,
yeah, if they had a vote about whether he's a dirty player in the conference,
the good people of Lubbock, Texas, would debate your assessment. But
he's not like Grayson Allen. Remember who tripped like 2 players per game. You know, he's not like that. But he's been here 12 years, so. You know, I'd probably be a little dirty player after 12 years, you know. So
he can go
I think he's finally going to leave after this year, though.
He could go play tight end at Miami and have a year left of eligibility. Kirk, the combine. Texas, of course, has had 1 or 2 a player flash, but they had themselves a hell of a weekend in Indianapolis with Xavier Worthy, Mitchell, obviously Sweat, Murphy, among others. Was that the best combine performance they've had since Mac Brown was in a national championship game or sometime around that time?
No question about it. I mean, they sent 11 to the combine, and not that any of us were surprised because we kind of, you know, Sark was kind of raving about them all year, and we were kind of predicting it during the fall. But I think from outsiders, because, you know, just a couple of years ago, they had 0. You know, 0 players drafted for the second time in school history, and then to go from that to 11 with, you know, possible 2 or maybe 3 first-round draft picks. You know, Byron Murphy's kind of considered the number 1 defensive tackle. And then you look at what the receivers, Mitchell and Worthy, did up in Indianapolis. That opened a whole lot of eyes. And, you know, personally, I think A.D. Mitchell's a first-round draft pick because, you know, he had 1 drop and 86 targets this year. Wow. 1 drop. He scored a touchdown in every playoff game. You know, or that's 4 for Georgia and 1 for Texas. And you know, at the end of that Sugar Bowl against Washington, they're throwing in the end zone the last 3 plays. All 3 of those were A.D. Mitchell, not Xavier Worthy. So he has as good a hands as I've ever seen here at Texas. And he's 6'2", a physical 6'2". Xavier Worthy is just a blur. He can get up and down so fast. And you saw he set the combine record at 4.21. But he also weighed in as 165 guys, and Mitchell 200. So that sets him apart also.
Kirk, would you say 3 first-round draft picks is possible if you say Worthy, Mitchell, and Byron Murphy for the Horns?
I think it's possible. I kind of think both of those receivers will not go in the first round because it's such a deep class with the 2 kids at LSU and Marvin Harrison and Roma Dunze, and you know, just go down the list. They're not good, but they're great wide receivers, and I think, you know, Texas too are in that conversation as well. But if I had to guess, I think Byron Murphy, and for my money, I'd take A.D. Mitchell. But you know, Worthy's also a punt returner and can return kickoffs, and like you say, he can fly. So, but I'd say 2 are likely. Maybe if things fall right, they might get 3.
Kirk, when Texas and OU, or when Brett Zerneman had the story that Texas and OU were leaving for the SEC, that kind of opened up the floodgates in college football, At the time, you wondered about where UT would be, positioned to go into a conference that has at least better at the top, not sure about top to bottom, but better with who they had with Saban, Kirby Smart, LSU, etc. But this happened to them also when they entered the Big 12, with Nebraska was the alpha. K-State was Snyder. Osborne retired 2 years into that. Saban's retiring before they even get there. Is that kind of a reminiscence, a break in a way, even though they beat Saban straight up in Tuscaloosa?
Well, a little bit. I mean, it's a break for everybody in the SEC that Nick's not going to be on the sideline anymore. There's no question about that. But the only reason I would stop that similarity a little bit, Smoak, is that Texas only won 3 conference titles in 27 years.
Yeah.
Whereas Oklahoma won 14. And you could argue that Texas is, moving into the SEC is a much better position than Oklahoma, because, Brent Venables, like Sark was going into this year, he's still trying to sort it out. He had a turnaround season, but, they lost Dylan Gabriel. He transferred, and they got a Jackson Arnold, a young sophomore quarterback. So, but yeah, I think they're going in at a good time. And even though they're losing 11 players to the NFL, if not more. He's had a top 5 recruiting class 3 years in a row too. So, if he can find some plug some holes in that defensive line, which was such a strength last year, and they're already being mentioned as kind of a co-favorite with Georgia. So they're sitting pretty right now, at least on paper.
Well, I mean, look, I know they haven't won a national title since 2005, but Smokey's actual question to you is, what genie or wizard did they make some sort of agreement with that the best coach in the conference would retire, like right after they joined them every time?
I'm sure they paid him off. I'm sure, they got money in Texas, and obviously Nick needed the money. So that was just a shocker, and to be honest, guys, that's a disappointment for me. I want the great coaches and the great players, stay in college forever, and it's just not as interesting without Nick Saban, in college football, because nobody's done what he does, and I've said this: he's the best coach in any level, any sport. For him to do that with we know the turnover of rosters in college football. Belichick, he won all his 6 titles, with Tom Brady, and then Tom goes to Tampa and win one. Well, Nick was doing it with a rotating quarterback. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, staff instability. He would name half his staff would turn over each year. So, he just, I could go on and on, but I really wish he was still here, to be honest with you.
Yeah, are you going to be at the Foster Pavilion, or is that Cedric, or are you going to be here, or are you going to be watching from home?
Yeah, I watch from home. It's Cedric's turn. We alternate games. So,
right.
So it's Texas hopes lie with Cedric. So it's up to him if
then
Horns don't. He should be blamed.
He's a very talented young man. Thank you, Kirk. Appreciate your time, buddy. Always great to have you on the show and catching up on what's happening with UT in Austin. Have a great night.
Hey, thanks for asking me. Enjoy the game.
Thank you very much. Kirk Bowles, the Austin American Statesman on 365 Sports. Well, how long is this break here, Garrett?
Probably about 3 minutes.
All right, we can do that. 3 minutes and come back with former Baylor guard on national championship guard and Maceo Teague. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on. I was driving over by Highway 6 just I guess yesterday, and man, it is really cleared out of the construction. It's much easier to get to the dealership now, and they've been supplying everybody with the same good old deals and same vehicle offerings throughout the construction over on Highway 6. If you live in the Waco area, you know what I'm talking about. But now a lot of that's out of the way, and it's even easier to get over to the dealership and celebrate with them. 25 years in business for Richard Carr this month of March. The party, though, started last month, and it's continuing on with big anniversary sale savings like thousands on a GMC Sierra SLT Crew Cab plus 1.9% financing for 72 months, plus an additional $500 off for military and first responders. Celebrate 25 years of Richard Carr Motors in Waco by taking advantage of the great deals on a brand new GMC Sierra SLT Crew Cab. If you're looking to go the pre-owned route, they've got a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well to choose from. 100 used cars and trucks to peruse through, all inspected with a 172-point inspection and the Richard Carr seal of approval and a financing goal at Richard Carr that is 100% credit approval. They say yes when others say no. So go celebrate with the birthday folks. 25 years here in Central Texas, and during that time, Richard Carr has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Central Texans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com. That's KARR.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6, the Imperial exit.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com with me, David Smoak. And tell you what, you guys keep rolling along. You do have yet another date, correct, for an online and live auction?
Yes, our next online and live auction will be Thursday, April 25th.
We've discussed how this has been unique and how people have reacted to it. Has that momentum continued as you've done more?
Yes, it's kind of half and half. We'll have a good amount of people there that are from the area, and then we have probably 40% that we ship out. And everybody that I've delivered locally to has talked about how much fun they had, and they want to know when the next one's going to be. We've gotten great feedback from the people that we've shipped to. They're all just so excited about this event, and they can't wait for the next one to happen.
Premium grade East Texas beef. Customers don't have to go out and buy their beef. TexasBeefHouse.com, from their family and their ranch to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely. And I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Man, one of the best you'll ever know. Maceo Teague, former Baylor all-conference guard, national champion, been a part of the Polish League, and always, and so is his mom, keeping up with the Baylor Bears, who play Texas, and, of course, on their way into the NCAA tournament after the Big 12 in Kansas City. Maceo, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak. How have you been? How's life?
I've been great. How you guys doing? First of all, you good? I'm glad to hear it.
Yep, we're doing well.
That's good. I've been well. I'm just out here, like you said, overseas playing ball, living a different lifestyle, but it's been pretty good so far.
How long has it taken you to adjust? Is it something you're getting used to? Obviously, there's pro leagues all over the world, and the one you're in right now.
Yeah, so it's a little different out here than it was in my first year in Germany. So like all of the leagues are like kind of different. So the way I would phrase it for somebody who's never experienced overseas basketball, it's kind of like the Big 12 has their own style, SEC has their own style, the Big 10 has their own style. So it's all these different styles of play, and you got to kind of adapt. And as you play more and more seasons and people out here, they can kind of tell you the styles of the league. But I've adapted to the league so far, and the lifestyle, I pretty much adapted to it. It's a slower pace, I feel like, than America. But, it's been good for me so far.
So, Tweety Carter, who's on the Baylor staff, lived that life for a long time. There have been other guys. How much did you lean on some guys who'd had that overseas experience that you knew before you went there to kind of find out what you were in for?
Tweety and I, we have a really good relationship. Actually, we have a great relationship. I just texted him last night. Tweety, I leaned on him a lot. I work out with Tweety when I go back to Baylor a lot during the summertime, and we have such a great relationship that I can ask him pretty much anything, and he's open up front and honest with me about situations that I may deal with on the court and off the court, like with the overseas life. So Tweety's been like a tremendous help for me in my overseas journey so far.
Maceo, it seems like in recent years the program's also had between yourself overseas, also in the league. You've got Keontae George, one of the newcomers doing his thing. What's it like to just see all of the various names from the past few years having these opportunities at the pro level more than ever before for this program?
It was great. Kendall Brown just got signed to a two-way.
Yeah.
Flag just got his two-way. And Ish just got signed to the two-way today with the Phoenix Suns. They just picked him up. So it's been great. I know I'm missing somebody out there. I'm missing. I can't remember. But all these guys are like doing amazing things, like making their way into the league. And it's great for the program because Coach Drew is able to say, we got this many guys in the league, and that's enticing to the high school recruits. And it's a transfer world now. So that's enticing to the transfer recruits as well.
Yeah, I just saw a video before I came here. Kendall and Jeremy trading jerseys after the game. Yeah. That was pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, that is.
Maceo, I saw your tweet towards Fran Fraschilla, who keeps saying that Ray J is not a true point guard. He's had an issue at times with turnovers, which of course when you're running the offense, you're probably going to have that more often than anybody else. What are your thoughts about Ray J? Had a hell of a game against KU, his position at point guard, and the Bears at this particular time?
Yeah, I like Ray J. Dennis a lot as a point guard for sure. I mean, he has some turnovers sometimes, but the thing is, like, he has the ball in his hands so much, and the offense relies on him to make so many plays. Like, you have to live with him making those mistakes. Because like I said, the offense relies on Ray J. Dennis a lot, and maybe sometimes he gets tired, or sometimes he might misread something, which happens in game. So, but I really like Ray J. Dennis a lot, and he's a selfless player. He's a pass first player. I think it was against actually Texas when he only shot twice against against Texas. He only shot twice the first time around, but he had like 9 assists. And he finished the game I can't remember, but he had a really good stat line, but he only shot twice, and it's because he wasn't out there forcing anything. And which what true point guard would do. So I didn't necessarily agree with that. I was really wanted a response because I haven't seen. Well, actually, I'll probably watch it. They would play 25 games. I'll probably watch like 18 of them. But I haven't seen all of the Big 12 games, and the recent ones I kind of missed. So I was wondering why Fran said that. But I like Ray J. Dennis a lot, and I like the team a lot as well. I think that we're starting to get it rolling and coming together a little bit.
Plus, that teardrop he has is dirty. It's just dirty.
Yeah. Yeah, going right, going left. He's got great touch around the rim. I like Ray J. Dennis a lot. I like him during the summer, and he's been doing his thing this year so far.
Maceo, when you transferred in, you had to sit out, and particularly you and Davion got to spend a lot of time together, not playing in actual games, and that kind of built what you guys were going to be once you hit the floor. Now guys can play right away, and I think that that's good. But how important is it for guys when they make that transfer decision to make it to a place that's not just based on an AL, but a place that you might be able to build some chemistry like you guys were able to do? Because there was nothing those 2 years in 20 and 21 that could have ripped like through that team. You guys were so solid together because you'd been through so many off the court things together.
Yeah, I definitely would say that we had a lot of off the court things because we spent so much time together not playing, like you said, and on the court with the scout team, we played a lot of minutes together doing that. So like we had a really good chemistry. But I think it's important for players to transfer to a school where they have like where they're needed, because if they go to a school where they're wanted, then it might be like some type of issues with playing time. People might get mad, and it might start causing issues in the locker room, and then guys start disliking each other and things of that nature. And it kind of just brings the team morale down, and it's hard to win in those circumstances, which we never really dealt with as a team. So credit to Coach Drew and the staff for bringing in guys who were selfless. And I think that that's really the main thing, just getting around a bunch of guys that are selfless. And Coach Drew, he's a salesman. He has to sell to the donors to get the NIL money, to get the program money, to to get the players to sign there. And then he has to sell the program to the players. Like, he has to get the players to buy in once they get there. So his whole job is to be a salesman, and he's been doing a great job at that. He's been phenomenal at it for 20 years. So we're looking forward to seeing him keep that up.
Maceo, we hear a lot about what a college or a program has in place when a player is injured, whether it's tweaking an ankle or something worse. And then getting that player back through, he or her back through rehab, et cetera, physical therapy, surgery, all that above. Do you feel like the college game has spent enough money or has enough of the personnel in place on the mental side of getting back from an injury in the college game?
On the mental side, I know that we had a team doctor or a team psychologist at Baylor. But I don't know how helpful she was. I didn't really feel like I needed her. But I think that if guys need to reach out, I mean, she's there. She was open and able to talk to anybody who wanted to reach out to her and come in. But I feel like it might also help to get away from Baylor. And now the guys are getting paid so much money, man, maybe just book your own session just so you can talk to somebody who you feel like isn't involved with the Baylor program, even though that they're not technically allowed to say anything. Like, it just might make you feel a little bit more comfortable. So now that guys are getting NIL money and they're not paying for their housing, they're not paying for food really, because Baylor feeds you after practice. You got a meal plan, and so you're not really paying for food. Like, I feel like you got to start learning to invest some of that money into yourself. So even if the college campus isn't paying for that much of a sports psychologist, you can go get your own person that you can talk to once, twice a week, and I'm sure that won't break the bank too much, especially not with the amount that I hear that guys are getting paid throughout the country.
Jared Butler, Davion, you, the team that won it all, that was just unbelievable. It's part of teams have players who transfer. The rules then were different than they are now. What would you suggest to a player with the transfer portal being so open now? What would you suggest they make sure before they make a decision?
Same thing. Same thing then is I feel like it's the same thing now. I kind of touched on it earlier. When I was transferring, it was the school. For instance, I'll say the name. It doesn't matter. Actually, I won't say the name. It was the school in the Big Ten. They had offered me a scholarship, and I went while I was on the phone with them. Literally, I looked up their roster. I saw they had 5 guards. I think it was 4 guards. No, they had 5 guards, and they were all sophomores and juniors. And I was like, "Well, you guys don't need me." And I told them right on our second conversation, I'm like, "Yeah, coach, I just don't feel like I'm needed there. You guys have a lot of guards. I understand you say I'll play, but like, you guys are guard heavy right now, and I don't think that this is a place for me because their guards played good minutes last year and they had a decent record. So you got to look at stuff like that. You got to look at who they have on their roster right now, who they're losing, like who they're bringing in. You got to look at that stuff and then look at the play style. Like if you like to get up and down, the SEC might be your conference. You got to look at stuff like that. Like if you like a slow, rugged style of basketball, the Big Ten might be your conference. So you just got to look up different styles of play. I mean, look up how teams play and who they have on their roster. I think those are the 2 biggest things that you need to focus on.
Maceo Teague, former Baylor guard, national champion, now in Poland, with us on 365 Sports.
Look, we should just have Maceo doing a YouTube video of like, here's the 10 things, like give a list of these things and why.
Yeah.
Because look, a lot of guys, they're just going to sit there and wait for the phone to ring and hear this school, this money, and that, and then like you might wind up, playing 7 minutes a night, and while your money's fine, then your prospects of getting better aren't really that good because you're only playing 7 minutes a night. And so it's pretty impressive. And I know that probably comes a lot from your mom too. You guys are both really deep thinkers and look at a lot of things, but that you at that young age really assess the roster in that way.
Yeah, for sure. That was one of the things because when I was coming out of high school, I remember I went to UNC Asheville, and my coach who was there, Coach Nick, he told me, he was like, "Hey man," he said, "you got a chance to play." He said, "We got 2 guys leaving. You got a chance to play here." And he said, "Hey, there's no better teacher than experience." He said, "You can get as many practice reps in as you can, but on the floor, when you're actually in the game, he said that'll be your best teacher. So you'll learn so much more. And I think you got a chance to play here." So when he told me that, I'm like, yeah. So when I transferred, and I had all of these schools contacting me, I'm like, yeah, most of you guys don't really need me, but but you guys just want me. So, yeah, you just got to look at that stuff, man. So it's a lot of knowledge that I've learned, and I'm just here to give it all to the people who are coming after me.
Even before the NBA tryouts, with getting ready for the draft, which is a pretty quick turnaround from the end of the season for you, how much did you already know and study players that were in the league or teams in the league before you even played a game at the pro level?
Oh, a ton. I had a whole bunch of clips. I'm on Synergy, and I used to watch guys who I feel like I would play similar to. Like I used to watch a lot of Steph Curry, not Steph, his younger brother, and I used to watch a lot of George Hill. And because coming out, like people told me that I played like George Hill all the time, and I'm like, George Hill, and I'm like, how do I play like him? And I really had no idea until I went and watched him. I'm like, okay, I can see how we do have similar kind of games. And I took it like as a slight at first, but then I looked it up and I'm like, yo, he played in the NBA for over a decade. So like that's the type of that's the type of person you want to be. That's the type of player you want to be and have that type of longevity in your career. So I watched a ton of film just of NBA basketball so I could see how it is that I can implement myself in that offense.
All right, let's get to where you are in Poland. How have you gotten used, or how long did it take for you to get used to the culture, the food,
the weather,
all of the above? But what have you eaten much of the homeland type food? What have you eaten if you have?
I've eaten pierogies. It's like a little dumpling with, and they come with different stuff inside of them. But I have one with like mushroom and cabbage or something like that. I didn't really like it that much, I'll be honest. But I had a pierogi with beef, and there was something else in there, and that was pretty decent. And then another meal that they served me, I don't know if this is like really Polish, but it was duck. I'm pretty sure it was duck. They had it at like and I've never had that like it was like a charity event. Mm-hmm. And usually it's like a small like little food. They had duck in there, and I was like, hey, this is pretty good. I was kind of nervous when I started eating it, but it was pretty good though. I liked it.
There was somebody on the chat, in fact, Chris, who mentioned charnina is a duck blood soup. Was that what you had, or something? Like, no.
I can find no blood soup. It was actual meat.
Okay.
Yeah.
How often do you go to the grocery store each week?
I go to. Wow, did my mom say that? I go to the grocery store. I probably go like 3 or 4 times a week, probably 4 actually, probably 4 times a week, and it's closed on Sunday, so I'm there 67% of the days that I can't there.
Yeah, I'm not going to turn your mom. I'm not turning your mom in on that one, by the way. But I just randomly wouldn't ask that question unless I had somebody bring it up.
Yeah, I'm there all the time. I love the grocery store. I don't know why, but I just don't buy a lot because sometimes like I don't feel like cooking and I'll eat out. And the food goes bad quick. It goes bad really quick here. Like it has like a 4 or 5 day expiration date. So I just I would go and buy food for like 1 or 2 days or 4 meals or something like that. Then I'll go back.
I would think because you've been in Poland, have you been to the Foster Pavilion yet?
I've never been.
Wow.
Never gone.
Well, go ahead.
Go on. No. I was going to say it wasn't even on the ground yet when I was there. Like they still had there was no actual building. Like it was like They were still doing the framework. So I haven't gone.
Well, they'll be playing from the beginning next year in November. So hopefully your schedule will work out and you'll be back here and playing pro ball in the United States too. So that would be great. Thank you very much. Maceo, always enjoyed having you on. Miss your smile, and also you're just a good young man and a hell of a basketball player in the way you represent Baylor, but also just everything. Appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Maceo Teague, former Baylor guard, now playing at the Polish League on the cuisine and also the fact that what he thinks about Baylor at this particular time and some memories and even ideas and about transfer portal and mental health and all of that too.
I'm willing to bet also that his mother could beat anyone in this room in horse.
Yeah. She and her husband are at the game this past weekend.
Yeah. I mean, like anybody in this room, most of the people in the chat room, if not all, she would take you down.
Yep. And then tell you about it.
Yeah. she would have an H and you'd be done.
Yep. You would be. All right, when we come back, we'll hear from Steve Berkowitz on Dartmouth. Remember that, about the union and much more? He's next. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. Ted Teague, the CEO and general manager, went by there the other day. It was weird because I bought the Ford Explorer that I have in May of 2020 during the COVID year. I've not had anything go wrong. I've had to get a tire replaced or a couple of them get replaced. I really haven't had anything wrong. And then I went to go start my car. I think it was Friday. Didn't work. I got a jump from Tom, who lives next to me at the condo. Went, did a couple of things, went to start my car, boom, had to get a jump. Drove straight to the dealership, and the service department was fantastic. I got a new battery. It was dead. Even though I had a jump, you always kind of think, oh, get a jump. You drive around for a little bit, everything's going to be fine. It was dead as a doornail. Got a new one. Appreciated the service. Appreciated the hospitality. And also how many times that they checked on me, even though I knew this might take a little bit, even if it was replacing a battery. And I was fortunate because I beat the big rush of traffic into the service department because it was pretty early on Friday. Also, by the way, the dealership loaded up with Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. The Ram truck, they just came off Ram Truck Month. There will be new incentives and offers. Just had their President's Day sale. There will be new deals and offers available to you. And when they get them, I'll make sure I get them to you. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. And only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America. 5 locations in Waco. And the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Steve Berkowitz does an incredible job covering college athletics. It's a great follow on Twitter, USA Today. If a coach gets a team into a tournament, wins a championship, a conference, whatever, Steve knows exactly what the bonus structure might be. He joins us on 365 Sports, but also on the Dartmouth story. Steve, thank you for your time on 365 Sports. So what's happening? What's the latest with Dartmouth, and did they miss some sort of a deadline of filing what they needed?
What happened here is that first of all, I don't know if you need me to back up and explain how this whole story got started, or if you just need me to talk about this. So what has happened here is that athletes on the Dartmouth men's basketball team filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board. They are seeking to have the opportunity to have an election about whether or not to form a union among the players. So they went through the case, and they had an evidentiary process that went before a regional director of the National Labor Relations Board. The regional director found that the athletes were employees of the university and that the athletes should be able to have an election as to whether or not they want to form a union. Dartmouth most recently had asked for the regional director to reopen evidence in the case, to reopen the record, essentially trying to, ask the regional director to reconsider her decision. And she declined to do that on a number of bases, one of which was that the school had missed this filing deadline to make that request. I mean, I think even if they had met that deadline, that the regional director was not going to accept that request.
So, Steve, for those people wondering that if Dartmouth does achieve this eventually, whenever that is, if this is going to spread like wildfire, would you caution that it's not going to be wildfire? It will be maybe more of a trickle, because ask anyone who works for Amazon how quickly they've been able to form unions in that regard.
Well, I mean, first of all, with Dartmouth, the school has made clear that they are going to seek a review of the regional director's decision by the full National Labor Relations Board. So that's going to take time. It may take up at least that could take as long as a year, if not longer. I believe in the case of the Northwestern football team, when they did the same kind of thing about 10 years ago, I believe that process ran about 14 months. And if Dartmouth doesn't like the outcome that they get from the National Labor Relations Board, they have the ability to appeal this into to a federal appeals court. So they can string this out for several more years. Having said that, if you have a group of athletes at Dartmouth on the basketball team who choose to unionize, yes, that may embolden athletes at other private schools to attempt to unionize. Right now, the National Labor Relations Act only covers people at private employers. So that's, keeps it pretty narrow for the time being. And obviously, presumably, it's a little easier to get 15 guys or 17 guys on a basketball team to agree to unionize than it is to get 85 or 90 guys or 100 guys on a football team to do that. The place where this gets more interesting is the National Labor Relations Board regional director in Southern California is hearing a case involving football, men's basketball, and women's basketball players at USC. And that case is pursuing a slightly different legal theory. And that theory involves holding that the NCAA and the Pac-12 are joint employers with USC. And that would create a circumstance that under labor law gets around the National Labor Relations Act being applicable only to a private employer, because they're suing multiple employers. And if they're joint employers, then it can be applicable to everybody. And so that's a much bigger potential problem. Now you have rules against the unionization of public employees in a lot of states, but that would be a much bigger deal than what's going on at Dartmouth. And the thing at Dartmouth could be a very big deal, but the one at USC could be an even bigger deal.
Steve, so yeah, that's again a much bigger thing, and you're talking about 3 different schools. Where do you see this working as it goes state by state? Because there are, like states like here in Texas where we don't have unions, we're a right to work state, so that makes it more difficult. Is this going to have to be federally decided? How does it work?
Well, I mean, again, it depends on how it all plays out. I mean, and in the meantime, while presumably Dartmouth continues to appeal this, so even if the vote is held tomorrow and the votes are counted tomorrow and the athletes, vote to unionize, which seems like is what's going to happen, nothing's going to happen, in the meantime with the athletes at Dartmouth until it plays out through the courts. Now, again, will you continue to see more and more of these kinds of unionization efforts at other schools? You might, and that will again continue to ratchet up the pressure on colleges to change how they're working with their athletes, either through collective bargaining, some type of revenue sharing, or some other type of arrangement that would create additional rights and compensation for the athletes.
What could go wrong if, in fact, this gets to that point where a lot of people start to unionize as far as college athletes?
Well, it sort of depends on who you talk to. The schools will tell you that all kinds of horrible things will ensue if you have a union and employment and collective bargaining. It just sort of depends on your point of view about those kinds of things. The colleges talk about how, well, the athletes will be in a position where they could be fired. Well, there are people who follow the Colorado football team who would argue that Deion Sanders fired football players last year. Now, Sanders would say to you, well, I didn't tell anybody, I didn't say to anybody they had to leave. They chose to leave. I was honest with them about how much playing time they would get, and then they chose to go. So, there are a lot of different ways that you can look at this. There are a variety of other implications for schools in terms of having to pay employment taxes and in ways that potentially increase the cost. But how all of that plays out in the long run, it's really difficult to tell. Obviously, it would change a lot of things in how college sports works, whether or not colleges or universities would want to continue to participate in big-time college sports with that kind of a circumstance, whether or not it would have financial implications for the schools. And there's a school of thought that if this happens, nothing will change. The athletes will simply collectively bargain, and the nature of the arrangement between the schools and the athletes will change in that regard, but everything else will go along. And it may only involve athletes in certain sports, and the schools will continue to fundraise and find ways to finance it and make it all work.
Here's a question from Conundrum in our chat room. Will the unionization have any impact on nonprofit status of college? IRS implications?
That's really hard to say. You have employee unions that deal with schools already for certain employment. So I'm not certain that this would have any impact on the school's 501c3 status.
Steve, is it as complicated as you've ever seen? Does this last for never ending, or do you feel like we're going to have some sort of, I don't want to use that word guardrails, but do you see some of this tidying up in any way?
I think you can foresee a outcome where you sort of settle all of this within a certain period of time, whether or not these cases play out in court, whether or not there are settlements reached in various of the legal cases, because don't forget, there are a whole series of other antitrust-related lawsuits that range from what's been going on recently with Tennessee and Virginia taking on the NCAA as it pertains to the so-called NIL recruitment of athletes out of high school or through the transfer portal, and you have sort of similar but slightly different antitrust challenges going on in three different lawsuits, either in California or in Colorado. So, if you can figure out a way to sort of globally settle all of this, that would bring some certainty to it. Certainly, if Congress were to take action and the president were to sign a law to that effect, that could also bring some clarity to all of this. But it doesn't appear like that's happening anytime soon. So, it's difficult to see anything but sort of continued churn on this unless you find a way to sort of craft out a sort of a global settlement to make this work out for the athletes in a different way than what you have right now.
You have, and Steve Berkowitz, again, USA Today with us, by Berkowitz on Twitter. You have an enormous number of coaching type bonus structures or whatever. How thick a book is that, or in your computer, of how much you have for each coach based on public schools, private schools, whatever, when somebody wins something?
It depends on the sport. Certainly in football, the bonuses are larger than they are in men's basketball or in women's basketball. But pretty much any contract with a head coach, and really for most of the assistant coaches, there is a bonus attached. There are bonuses attached to team achievement of some type, whether it's athletic on the field achievement, whether it's academic achievement. Some coaches have bonuses that are connected to the citizenship and social responsibility and community service of their athletes. And it's not just the coaches. I mean, athletics directors have bonuses as well that are tied in to their contracts that in some cases have to do with the specific performance of specific teams. I mean, athletic director bonuses also have to do with sort of broader departmental wide goals, for example, like budgeting and things like that. But, basically employment contracts across the board for coaches and administrators in positions of that are at the higher end of positions of authority have bonuses attached to them that are based on achievement, by the athletes or by the department.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate your time. Good stuff. Steve Berkowitz, USA Today, with us, Dartmouth, and that unionization and what was going on today in the courts, or what is next for them. That's above my pay grade. That's why it's great to have people like Steve Berkowitz and others join us to try to at least explain a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah, which is why collective bargaining is coming, but it's going to be different than having unions, and then you'd have to get like a national union and different other things. It's such a long process, and believe me, there's not really a big business out there that's like, you know what, you guys should have a union. Let me help you out with that.
I don't think businesses are encouraging more unions.
Yeah, no, we go through, and I know that there's people who may feel this, but if you look historically in the history of the world, there's times where unions are absolutely needed, and there's times where they grow too big and then it kind of outlive their usefulness, or they become the problem and they start hurting their own members. But, as big as corporations are getting, and this is what the NCAA and these conferences are now, is essentially gigantic corporations taking a bunch of corporate money.
Well, one of his headlines is the fact that the SEC made $800 million. Yeah. So there you go, to your point.
That's a corporation right there. So, again, that's it's the reason that you have so many different weird issues in the country when it comes to salary and minimum wage and negotiating and all these things, because you let something get so big and you let it do that for so long that instead of gradually moving something down the line to account for the fact that money changes over time, you have this situation now where it's we have to fix it right now, and nobody can do the math on what does that even mean, because you haven't adjusted things over time. I wish that, I was in college, my rent was $400 a month. I wish my mortgage was still I wish $400 a month could get me anything anywhere. But that's not the case anymore, because that was 20 years ago. So it's just things change and we don't really adjust well with them.
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting stuff and above my pay grade, like you said. So it's good to hear people who know what they're talking about with certain issues like this that can flesh it out and better, make it better and more understandable for people like myself. But I think the private-public part of this is very interesting, the split as far as the schools go there. And we cover a private school primarily, and I wonder how that changes things for them versus when we're talking about Oklahoma State or Kansas State. How does that differ for a Baylor, for a TCU, for an SMU, for those private schools versus the public schools? I probably need to ask Mac Rhodes about that to some extent. But, yeah, I mean, it feels like we know the inevitable of what's coming and rolling down the hill. It's just a matter of, how can you slow it down? You're not going to stop it, but how can you maybe cut it off at the pass? And that's all, I guess, to be determined in the wash here. But, it's very interesting stuff and a lot of legal stuff for a sport that we all love because of the on the field, but has so quickly become a game where off the field there are as many, if not more, interesting headlines. And I don't know where my interest level goes. It kind of depends on the exact story itself when it comes to the courtroom battles and things like that. But certainly unionization is almost feels inevitable with the money that's being exchanged. So it's something to talk about and something to pay attention to.
When we come back, Big 12 basketball, not just tonight, but also this week. The standings, the AP Top 25 is out. Where is everybody? Who are the number one seeds right now in college basketball? Because Tennessee's win this past weekend really did maybe launch them into the mix of a number one seed. Where is KU? As far down as you've seen them in a long, long time as far as the top 25, and a record in the Big 12 they've never understood or ever experienced. That and more next on 365 Sports.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, how lovely are your SUVs. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, I love the trucks you have for me. Strong and tough with luxury, room for all my family. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, you are the dealership for me.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Yesterday, ESPN reporting that probably as good an insider as you could ever have in covering anything. Sports. Chris Mortensen passed away at the age of 72. A note from Jimmy Pitaro. All you have read about him, with all of his insight, sources, a phone that's probably loaded with numbers that most of us could not even comprehend, was what kind of person he was. Authentic. I contacted Ed Werder, who covered the Cowboys in the NFL forever, and asked him if he could come on and talk about Mort. And he basically was honest. He goes, my head's not in the right space for me to be able to do that right now. Talked about how much he loved him and at some point. But Chris Mortensen, I had a chance to interview him a couple of different times. When RG3 turned pro, he and Ron Jaworski were always available to take a text and text back. A tremendous gentleman And you could see it from start to finish from people from yesterday who work with him or people who are in the business. An incredible man, and so R.I.P. to a great one in Chris Mortensen.
Yeah, he was amongst the best of the best when it came to covering the NFL, and I certainly have a place in my mind of just the people that I grew up watching. If I had to list off the reporters that I'll remember from growing up and just even getting older, Chris Mortensen is certainly going to be there when it comes to the NFL in particular. So, yeah, an institution for a long time there at ESPN. And, I mean, we all knew something was going on, even if you didn't read like necessarily a report. Like I remember catching him on TV, and it was a while back, but I was just like, I was taken aback by how he looked. And obviously, come to find out he had been dealing with health issues and things like that. And this was a while ago. Like this wasn't even here recently. And so I was made aware then that, okay, he's battling some stuff, and you kind of, set yourself up of like, all right, you kind of know that it's sort of wrapping up here. I don't know how else to put it, but hopefully he gets better and is able to get healthy and eke it out for a while longer. And he did, but I don't know. I don't think I ever saw him again after that. I just remember thinking that, like, oh, man, he looks like he's been through a lot, and I just felt terrible for him, and I think that was the last time maybe that I had seen him on something. And so, yeah, just very sad when you see people battling illnesses and just getting up there in age, and he was great. I mean, I can't think of a single time I ever got – now you can think of just about anybody. You're like, I remember when that son of a, but with Chris Mortensen and that whole era of watching ESPN, I don't recall a lot of that really.
Well, I mean, look, he probably didn't get every single story right because nobody does, but he was also so good at his job that he didn't miss that often. Or you knew that if he was going with something, it was coming from someone who was a decision maker.
It was official news.
It was official news. So he wasn't going to kind of run with things. I got to meet him one time at a Monday Night Football game. Shireen Williams introduced me to him, and he could not have been nicer and more like, we talked about, Baylor that year, and he's like, oh, what do you think about Petty? I'm like, what do you think about Bryce Petty? I don't know anything, compared to you. And he was just so nice and great and gracious and always, young reporters, I remember just seeing like young TV people that were there, from the Dallas market who were the third or fourth people, and that you think you've made it when you're the fourth guy on Channel 8, but then Chris Mortensen walks in the room and, oh my gosh, Chris Mortensen, that was kind of the thing. So he, a Hall of Famer in every regard as a media member and just the nicest guy in the world. And we've lost him. We've lost John Clayton in the last few years. And, there's a lot of good reporting that's gone on to the other side, and certainly going to miss seeing him. And I remember the last time I saw him on TV, he had lost even more weight, and it wasn't in the good way. It just he looked like it was really taking its toll on him. And so I'm glad he's been called home and that he won't have to suffer anymore. But I know me and you guys and every other NFL fan is going to miss his good work.
Yeah, I respected him a great deal. And John Clayton, too. Like, those guys helped put the NFL where they are in some ways, I feel like, with their reporting and led to just the boon of the NFL becoming as big as it did. Like, it wasn't just the teams and the players themselves, but it's the coverage of it. And those guys were in on the NFL coverage and taking it to a maximum level that, it became just an even bigger and bigger deal as time went on. But yeah, he was a legend and a great reporter, and throat cancer was what he had been battling for a really long time. I guess for several years, and don't know about what actually got him, ultimately, but I know that was a big fight when we were probably talking about kind of the same things when we last saw him. So just hate that for anybody going through the big C. We're all affected by it, obviously, at some point or another, and just sad news. Part of getting older.
Yep, it is. 72 years young, and Chris Mortensen passed away on Sunday. Big 12 tonight, there's one game. Big Monday. Baylor at home against Texas, who beat them at the buzzer with Tyrese Hunter on that court length baseline to baseline layup. Tonight, 8 o'clock is on ESPN. Tomorrow's schedule includes 3 games: Texas Tech at Oklahoma State, Cincinnati at Oklahoma, and then Kansas State, who beat Kansas in Manhattan at KU tomorrow on ESPN. Eventually, Houston and Iowa State, the highest-ranked teams. BYU also playing those games. Houston at UCF Wednesday, TCU West Virginia. BYU really running. Nice run. 6 quad 1 wins at Iowa State on Wednesday.
Yeah, BYU's playing well, and I mean they've got to be over the moon with how they've managed so far the first year in the Big 12.
I think they are, yeah.
For all the questions about each school and each sport and how things would go, I mean, BYU in basketball certainly has met or exceeded most people's expectations, I would say, for sure. Do you want to dive into Saturday, or are we still, is that off limits on this show?
No, we're going to do that. Let's look at the top 25.
I didn't know because of...
No, we're diving into it. We're going head freaking first into that.
It's a big win for Scott Drew and Company.
It's a great win for them.
Yeah.
And KU even had one of their stars back in Kevin McCullough. And Baylor playing without Langston Love.
And McCullough played well.
He was. He scored 19, 9 of 19 from the field, but 0 for 5 from the three-point line. So here are the do you have the top 25? There we go. Houston, and they had to survive. They struggled, but they got it done. And they're kind of battling some injuries right now, too. UConn, Purdue, Tennessee, 1 through 4, and then Arizona, future Big 12 team. Iowa State, Baylor 11, they move up 4. Kansas drops to 14. They drop 7 spots. And then there's BYU. They moved up 6 after a great week last week, beating Kansas and Baylor. So they're now at number 20. And then look at the teams. I want you to look at 19 through 25. What do Gonzaga, San Diego State, Utah State, St. Mary's,
USF,
South Florida,
big win for USF, a big run for them,
and Dayton have in common.
Yeah, they are. They're mid majors.
Every one of them,
yeah,
and they're all there at the very bottom. Creighton at 10, dangerous as hell how good they are, but they're right there. Those are those teams at the bottom, and the ones. One of those will probably make a deep run during the tournament in March. Now, here's a note about UConn. Garrett, do you have that one? Rob Douster sent this out yesterday. UConn won an outright conference regular season title for the first time since 98-99, a quarter of a century ago. They've won 5 national titles in that time since winning a regular season title, which they clinched over the weekend.
Well, just Kansas has won most of the Big 12 titles, and they only have 2. So, winning the conference title when you're going into a 68-team tournament is great, and it's going to set you up well, but it is in no way, a harbinger of success, right? I mean, it's never guaranteed that, this team's going to win a national title for sure. I mean, look, Duke and North Carolina both have that. Kentucky has won a bunch of them. Look, whoever the SEC champ has been the last 12 years since Kentucky won, have not won the title. It's a hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do. Again, when you're in a 68-team tournament and you're playing 2 games a weekend, a day apart, which you only do a little bit during the season and have to, do it at the end when you might have some injuries and bumps and bruises. It's a hard thing to do.
Yep. Now, let's get to Saturday. Baylor beats Kansas, dictated the second half. Kansas made a little bit of a run, I think got down to 5.
Kind of.
Baylor had a turnover or 2 and missed a couple of freebies. And they beat KU. Scott Drew and company, remember there was one point this year, I think they were 4-4 in the Big 12. They're now 10-6. So they've made a nice run. Craig, what did you think of the game?
I thought it was an incredible atmosphere. I thought it was loud. I mean, you can just hear that there's just a shriek that comes from Foster Pavilion that it was not evident in previous years with the Farrell Center. But I mean, a heck of a game, a great duel all the way throughout. And I think Baylor just got a lot of great contributions from their stars. And I feel like for this team, we're very slow to want to crown them because they do have their warts. But, man, when they've got it all together and they're playing a great brand of basketball and everybody's kind of eating, I feel like this is a team that you go, yeah, they could go out in the second round. They could also go to the Elite Eight, if they got on a crazy run. I thought the tone setter right out of the gates, was that Missy with the dunk right out of the –
He was fantastic.
As soon as the doors opened was you talk about a tone setter and just – all right, here's how, here we are, boom, let's play. I thought that was about as fun of a moment that I've seen in a while from I keep wanting to say Farrell Center, from the Foster Pavilion. Just one of those highlight type of a moments in a game like that, setting a tone. people pumped out of their minds. It was very cool to see that.
Well, and they, look, East got thrown around by Houston, like absolutely thrown around, and you could tell that they made a concerted effort to make sure that he was going to be the best version of himself against Kansas, and he was as locked in as a young player, especially a freshman
against
player,
another good big man,
against Hunter Dickinson, who played well. Hunter Dickinson played really well. Baylor played a very clean game. They only had 7 total fouls, so they kept.
They got the Allen Fieldhouse treatment.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and look, they were very good. Kansas does not shoot well from 3, which is rare for them. They don't have a bench, although Elmarco Jackson played better than Johnny Furphy, who's a starter this time around. But this is probably bad news for Kansas in the short term, but bad news for the rest of the Big 12 in the long term, and that it's probably not going to go down this way again. Kind of like when we talked about who was like the Chiefs' offense never going to be this bad again. Like you're going to have this like little short window before they figure it out, and a lot of these guys are probably coming back. So, but this is not your classic Kansas team. Now, look, if their starting 5 is all healthy and all locked in, they'll probably beat you. But if they have one kind of weak link in that chain at any given day, or they get gassed, like Baylor gassed them out in the second half in that game. If they get gassed, they're just going to be tough. This is going to be tough for them to win.
Well, Baylor has gotten on a nice little run, but Texas, of course, has too. And so tonight they both meet. UT, I think, has put themselves without question. I thought they were already in, but remember Jerry Palm last week said that they don't count them in yet, but they took care of business as they should have against Oklahoma State. They played tonight in Waco.
Well, what were your thoughts on Saturday?
I kept waiting, and Paul and I text each other like a couple of middle schoolers, actually trading notes. But I kept waiting for Kansas to make a run, and it usually isn't from a star. It's from somebody like Furphy or Jackson who came up with a couple of hits. You could see it, and I thought Baylor showed tremendous composure, patience when that thing could have gotten a little bit sloppy. Jacoby Walter missed the front end of a one-on-one. That's not 1 point. That could be 2. Ray J missed a 1-0. Ray J's floating 8 to 10 footers were insanely accurate, which is Bill Self mentioned that in the postgame, how hard that is. Here's also what Bill Self said, and this is part of what I was about to bring up too. He was asked about his first trip to the Foster Pavilion. This is dozens of times better than what Baylor used to play in the Farrell Center. Also said that whoever came up with the acoustics, the noise, it sounds like so much more than 7,500 people that are in the arena. And that's true. It's very loud. I have not had any problems with it, but of course with my hearing, it could be even louder than that, and I wouldn't notice it. It never has bothered me.
Did you notice the jet engine that just took off? No, you didn't.
No.
I mean, yeah, you do not hear.
I worry,
well.
like we have, fire engines going by.
I hear them.
Okay, good. I just worry because sometimes you don't react.
Remember, it's not the noise. It's the tone of the noise that seems like it gets me. Like when a doctor has something and they're trying to test your hearing, I can't hear any of those tones. Can't hear them. I really can't. So I thought both teams shot 55% from the field. It was a very well-played game.
Most nights with the stat line that Kansas had from 4 of their 5 starters, they probably win a game like that. But Baylor was so locked in the second half that they
Jaden Nunn hit a couple of back-to-back plays early in the second half that kind of launched them.
And Baylor actually went on a couple of different runs, which is not – also, like when this team is not at their best, that's what they're unable to do. Like they'll hang with you, but they don't go on runs. And it's weird because you'll watch like, how are they in this game and they haven't gone on one 10-0 run? They went on some runs against Kansas and really the place was electric. This is 4 years in a row, 21, 22, 23, and 24 that they've beaten Kansas in Waco. So it's a huge thing. Like
Imagine telling somebody that.
That's a legit rivalry.
Imagine telling somebody that, though, a few years ago. They beat Kansas 4 years in a row at home.
Yeah.
People wouldn't have believed that. I mean, no matter how good Baylor is.
Yeah, Kansas used to come in here and have 3 starters injured
and I
and win
think
by 9.
I think Baylor would hyperventilate.
Even good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Baylor would have this great situation. Kansas coming in. They've got some starters out. They've got these things going on. Baylor's, on a 7-game winning streak or something like that, and highest ranking they've had and whatever. They're hitting all these benchmarks for the program. Kansas comes in and wins by 9 on an off night, and Baylor would kind of crumble under the pressure. And now Kansas comes in here and goes out losing. And believe me, I feel it.
I don't know what the stat was, but there's a stat from Kansas, and they hit 4 threes. Baylor hit 7, so it wasn't like someone hit double digits. But the stat about KU giving up threes to their opponents in the point differential is massive. Like, it's a huge, even overall, Kansas probably has a plus minus. Of course they do. But when it comes to three-point shooting, it is unbelievable the difference that they've given up compared to what they're shooting, because they're not getting points from the perimeter. And all it takes is all of a sudden a couple of guys hit that haven't been. So then I got a chance to see Amanda before the game. She was in her Jayhawks colors. Paul's mom was there too with a couple of friends, but I had a chance to sit next to her. You could tell she was very, she wanted the game to start. I thought she composed herself pretty well considering her team was beaten. She seemed to have all the people around her seemed to be real friendly.
She was doing fine. I was proud of her. She took the loss better than she's taken most.
No, she did not.
Well, she's had enough time to get used to it this year. There's been plenty of them. Sorry. But.
They might play Baylor. They might be, they might play Baylor. And here's the note. I never thought about this, and I don't know the last time. Kansas, it appears that when they go to Kansas City, will end up playing on Wednesday.
And that's the thing that they want to avoid the most. Bill Self said it. You don't want to play Wednesday.
Well, you got an extra game.
Yeah.
Now, if they win, they could end up playing Baylor. And, of course, it's in Kansas City, so we'll see what happens. But when, KU fans have booked a ticket or the plans have already been made to go watch the Big 12 tournament and watch KU play on Thursday against some poor soul. And they're going to have to play on Wednesday, it appears.
They'll go to that too, but
But they're not used to that.
They're not used to it, no. Yeah. They're not used to it. So, win against Kansas State and a miracle on the road against Houston, and you probably don't have that problem, but split them and you're probably still playing on Wednesday. So, it is what it is. But I've tried to tell Amanda to see the silver lining in this, and look, yes, it's a weird year, but maybe the best active coach in college basketball right now is in charge. So, and there's NIL and all these other things that you can do. So I would imagine that the word is already out, that Kansas is open for business when it comes to the transfer portal.
Or is everybody else now able to pay their players?
Well, yeah, that's true.
That
but I do think that when you talk about Kansas and people whose whole personal life is wrapped up in the Jayhawks and their money. I've got $50 million in the bank. I'm doing nothing. The only joy I have in my life is Allen Fieldhouse. Well, let's make sure that, those guys that we let go. And look, this all goes back to, and is the Arterio Morris decision where him being involved and them not getting a player who is going to be there and play and not have any off the court. It's
a pretty good player.
It is, look, you lay down with dogs and you get fleas, and Bill Self did that, and I'm still kind of flabbergasted that he did, because it's a very uncommon of him to take that kind of a risk. And
sometimes we just see people do that, though.
Yeah.
You just don't. I don't know. You just don't, for whatever reason, think about it the obvious way that everybody else is thinking about it, I guess, or you have blinders on, or I don't know. But yeah, that was a questionable decision, but it's certainly not the first or last that a college coach will make in regards to a player coming on board. But yeah, that definitely threw them for a loop pretty much right out of the gates, to your point, Paul.
I agree, but it's a hell of a game. By the way, I think Kansas was, when it got down to 5, you could hear some murmuring, because that's kind of what you're used to. I thought Self in the postgame was great. I thought he was very honest and realistic about who they are. I still think that they have a chance to make a run, but somebody's going to have to start making shots for them other than the 1 or 2. Sir blah, blah, blah. Is Paul secretly happy Kansas lost?
No.
All right, Amanda's not watching. Say what you really feel.
I know. I have no idea whether she is or not.
If he is, he will never admit it from Bracket Cat.
No. It's look. I want my wife to be happy, and I want her, to enjoy things. But yeah, I mean, no, I'm not. I would never be happy believe me, I'm never happy when Kansas loses.
What if it was to Florida State for the national title?
See, there's the one scenario. But look. Fortunately, the two sports that our schools are good in, neither of them have been really good at the same time. And one of them is national championship caliber in basketball. One is national championship caliber in football. And there the twain shall meet. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
It'd be a great thing to have to deal with. Why did you text me after the game and said, once I take them back home, I want to meet you for a beer or a celebration?
Did I say that? No, I did not say that. No, I did not say that. That one's untrue. But you did. I
thought she handled it well. She started texting me yesterday afternoon, and she started to let some of the venting out.
Yeah, no, she's taking positive steps. We're proud of her in our house.
All right, when we come back, we appreciate everybody today, as always, every single day, for supporting what we do on 365 Sports, including our amazing sponsor and Paul Catalina and the Top 5.
Shop big savings during the Ram Truck Month sales event at Allen Samuels. New Ram 1500 Lone Stars and Laramies, crew cabs and quad cabs are on the lot and ready for immediate delivery. The Ram Truck Month sales event is a winner at Allen Samuels in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 surprising prospects getting buzz post-combine. I can't wait to get to number 1 on this list and hear Craig's assessment of it. But number 5, Jalen Simpson, DB Auburn, had put up some really great numbers in the testing. I suggest you guys go to NFL.com if you are a draftnik like me and read Lance Zierlein's breakdowns of everybody. He's done a really, really good job. on everyone. But Jalen Simpson's kind of a safety nickelback coming out of Auburn. And the reason it's surprising is you didn't hear much about any Auburn players during the season, but he tested out really well. Film's really good on him, and is someone who could probably get into the second day now. It's where maybe people weren't so sure on him, but especially the way that defenses are now, he can play nickel corner, he can play safety. I would say Washington, if they do need this and they want this, in Dan Quinn's defense, based on what I've read about him, he's kind of fit for that kind of safety that the Cowboys were using in Dan Quinn's defense over the last couple of years. In fact, ran a 4.45 40 let me find that shuttle run he did as well. I didn't have it here. The vertical jump was 39.5 and the broad jump was 11.1. So really did overall production score 57th by them, but a prospect grade of 6.17, which means he grades out right now to a probable NFL starter. So someone you may not have heard of, but someone to keep an eye on now post-combine.
All right, yeah, don't have much to add there. I saw that the Falcons were a team that he's apparently talked to. You know how all those kind of reports start to trickle out, but that was one that apparently was interviewing him during the event. So, yeah, like you said, it's kind of been quiet as far as Auburn news goes for the last few months. I mean, I guess not if you're boots on the ground or you're somebody subscribed to one of their websites. I'm sure there's been plenty of action going on, but just kind of outside of just the normal, like, hey, Hugh Freeze is here, he's taking over play calling. What's going to happen at the quarterback position? Yeah, we haven't talked a ton about Auburn, so maybe get a little juice here in the next few weeks with some NFL draft action.
Number 4. Ben Sinnott, tight end H-back from Kansas State. We've seen him over the last few years quite a bit and was one of those kind of X-factor players for the Wildcats. And, whenever they needed a first down or kind of a big touchdown or throw a big block, it was Ben Sinnott who did it. He's a dude who'll do anything he's asked to do. 4.68 in the 40, which is, not glorious, but for a tight end, it's good. 6.82 in the 3-cone drill, 10.6 broad jump. So a super athletic guy who's got great size. It's 6'3.5" and 250. So someone that, maybe was like a day 3 prospect going in, but might sneak into day 2 if you fits your system. But definitely a guy who's going, I would say, by the 4th round based on his film and his workouts now kind of matching up well. I
love that he can do a lot of different things. I don't know about, overall how that fits into an NFL offense. I just like the guy is tough. He seems to have really good hands. He seems to be always in a position to make a play when something's needed. He's not a playmaker, but he is also so reliable.
Yeah, he's a super productive, super reliable, like you said, just solid all-around player, can block free, can catch the football. I think in today's NFL, there's obviously a place for him. And so what a great time to be a tight end going into the league nowadays. Not saying he's going to be Travis Kelce or along those lines, but yeah, can he be productive? Can he be good? Can he have a long career? Yeah, I don't see any reason as to why not. Maybe there's a breakdown out there where there's some glaring deficiency, but I don't know. It seems like he's a pretty solid bet for whoever decides to take a chance on him.
Number 3. Jalen Wright, running back from Tennessee. I don't know if people really know this about them because him, I didn't know. I remember watching highlights of him and having some big runs and having this crazy speed. But this is the dude who led the country in yards per carry last season and over 7 yards a carry, as a matter of fact, and had a 40-yard dash time of 4.38. Good size, fantastic speed, and compared by Lance Erline to Mel Gordon, but explosive runs on 25% of his carries, and his workout tape matched that. A bit of a fumbler a couple years ago, but this is a dude who, in the right system, could, and again, you're talking about a day 3 or day 2, day 3 guy, could really be kind of a diamond in the rough, and played in the SEC where he had explosive play after explosive play.
Yeah, he's super athlete. I think that he's definitely one of the big winners coming out of this weekend. People can see just what a great talent he is and how he might be able to fit in a variety of different ways for teams out there. So, yeah, not somebody that I think we've talked about much at all, but a terrific player and definitely one of the winners, I guess you could say, coming out of Combine weekend.
Yeah, and number 2, to follow along this, the fastest running back time was Isaac Guerrero out of Louisville. Now, look, they had a great two-headed monster at Louisville at running back this year with Gerard Jordan and Isaac Guerrero. Gerard Jordan is really kind of the number one guy, with Guerrero being kind of right behind him and played a lot. But Guerrero is probably the guy who translates into the NFL a little bit more because of his size and speed, also explosive plays and what he can do. Somebody mentioned him on the chat room a couple weeks ago. And, I was talking about diamonds in the rough, and they mentioned Isaac Guerrero. Certainly, he already had that, and now he's got people looking at him because he ran a 4.33 the other day. If you watch his film, it's kind of crazy. Like, he makes big plays.
225.
Yeah, and a big, strong running back. Officially 6'0", 221. So, they didn't lie too much there.
Yeah. It's so hard, dude. There's so many stats now. Like measurements, and it's like with college football, there's how many metrics are there measuring every little detail? I mean, it's hard to keep up with, but there is one that I saw for Guerrero. I don't dismiss them. It's just for somebody who's not number savvy like me, it's just a lot to. It's like reading Mandarin sometimes. Yeah. But for him and next gen stats, he was just the 5th running back to earn a max athletic score of 99 since 2003. So that kind of encapsulates like the all-around athleticism and freak that he is. So yeah, he's a guy that's got a lot of just oomph to him, a lot of what you like, blazing speed, nice size. Super dynamic guy, and hats off to whoever mentioned him in the chat room the other day as a guy we mentioned, and very curious too, like just how do the running back chips fall? That's a guessing game. Bijan last year, it was obvious that he was going higher.
Yeah,
like that was a foregone conclusion that Bijan was going to break the mold a little bit or be one of the mold breakers and was going to go relatively high, and he did. But man, after that, it's kind of a crapshoot. So I think you're looking at Guerrero and Wright. Who else is in that mix as far as the Trey Benson would be in that mix? I think
Benson's the one, like, of all the guys who had the fastest times with the most production.
Yeah. But there's not like a Bijan though.
No, there's not a Bijan. You've got a lot of guys that are. Jonathan Brooks is widely regarded to be the best all-around prospect, but he's not been working out because he's recovering from the ACL, and I can't disagree with that. Like if you told me pick the best running back in the draft if everybody's healthy, I'm probably saying Jonathan Brooks.
I think what's
but
scary,
again, it's not Bijan. Yeah.
I think what's scary though is Jonathan Brooks got hurt and they didn't even really miss a beat.
No.
I mean, they really didn't miss a beat at all.
No, and like they had that couple week period where it was like trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but
they didn't look great when it came to that. And then when Cedric Baxter quit being scared, they were just like, all right, here we go.
It wasn't like they fell off a cliff once he left. It took them a second to adjust, but they've got some studs back there. They're about to go on a real crazy run, I think, with running backs getting drafted.
Over time, and there have been others, USC for the longest time was known as that, Nebraska with their run on, their running backs that they get into Austin, and they rarely don't hit on them. Jonathan Gray was good. He wasn't great.
Malcolm Brown
Brown from Steele was good.
Yeah.
But I mean, the run that they've had, the reason people go there, and it's not just because of Earl Campbell and Cedric Benson and Ricky Williams. They have
Priest Holmes and plenty of it. Not to go all the way back. Jamal Charles. But like right now, it feels like they're about to hit you just had Rojan and Bijan, and now you're about to get Jonathan Brooks, and then there's going to be Baxter and so on and so forth. So they're
from Arizona, which they've got a great pipeline.
Isaac Guerrero's great too.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. At number 1, Spencer Rattler. Now, look, his grades, like as far as it comes out, are they're fine. I mean, about what most mid-round quarterbacks are going to get. But I've seen the buzz around him start to grow, and I think it's because there are draft people who look at him as a recruit 4 or 5 years ago and think if somebody could just tap into that. And I will just tell you that if Lincoln Riley can't do it, I'm not sure who can. So I'm curious as to where this goes, but he's one of those guys who has all the arm strength measurables and all that, and we knew that from the time he was 16 years old. And here he is now about to go into the NFL, and he'll be an NFL backup for a certain period of time in his career, and maybe he winds up the light coming on him being a valuable starter in the middle rounds. But, man, I've seen a lot of this guy playing, and while he played pretty well for South Carolina in a down year for that team after, most of their skill players transferred last year. But they still had Xavier Leggett. That was fine, but I just don't see it, guys. I just don't see it with him being an NFL.
You don't see it?
I just don't see it.
All right, I think I do see it. I think he's been an NFL guy more so than a college football guy from the start. That's kind of my opinion. I think there's the intangibles that people liked, and there's the off the field definitely needed some maturing. Definitely, didn't have a lot of like. I know, for example, like my little sister saw him on that reality show on Netflix before he even really played, and she's like, "I don't like this guy." Like there was like those kind of issues maybe, but that's also personal, just opinion. But I think he's always had the skills. It's a matter, can he put it all together? Can he lead? Can he do those things? I think maybe he's matured a bit, which is good, but I think the skills have always been there, and it's just a matter of putting it all together. So the arm strength, the ability to hit certain throws, his pocket presence. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can break down, but I think as a guy who's just got the skills to play at that level, I think that people do see that, and I think he is blessed with those types of talents. But I can understand where you look at some of his lesser performances or the attitude or whatever, and getting beat out by Caleb Williams, although that's not really a bad thing in the long run. But yeah, he's a very polarizing prospect, right? That would be a fair thing to say. I think that's a great.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of got a little Baker in him.
I think it's just depends on who you talk to and who's maybe got some biases toward him. But he's definitely a very polarizing. I saw a lot of that. Like I'm all in on Spencer Rattler after the combine. I think people are making some knee-jerk reactions about the combine because this shouldn't be the thing that sells you on him or not. It should be like all of the games that he played in over the last several years. But I can see the temptation to line him up and see what he can do because he does have a great skill set. But can he make the right decisions and do all those things? I mean, that is a question mark.
All right, Paul, that it? Thank you very much. Emery Winter is already dicing it up, getting ready for 365 Sports tonight. I had multiple people yet again tell me about how, in fact, earlier today, a guy said, I wasn't sleepy, I couldn't go to bed. He had a lot on his mind. He woke up at like 10:40, looked up, CW, here's our show, 365 Sports tonight, every weeknight.
And we put him over.
And we put him right to
dead
sleep.
asleep. As soon as he saw us talking realignment, he just rolled right back.
He thought about having a gummy. He just watched us and fell dead asleep.
There you go. So,
Emery Winter, thank you for what you do every night. And also the great folks at the CW, which is also a part of the local KWTX. Garrett Ross, thank you very much. Tomorrow, Iowa State AD Jamie Pollard. We will ask him straight up about all these rumors or discussions or what do they call it? Socializing about the college football playoff. He's a part of the basketball committee, so we'll get into that with him too.
And I'm sure he will give us a very direct answer, and I cannot wait for it.
I cannot either. For Paul Catalina and for Craig Smoak, our great sponsors as we start another month, which we did on Friday. I'm David Smoak. Thank you. Good night, 365 Sports.